he said that
He's what?
he's running late. His flight was delayed,
And
he said he'll be here in like 30 minutes.
perfect.
It's great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Hey, look at that. Hey, this thing has got the volume up. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us here. We're going to have ourselves a fundraiser. And I will preface this by saying, first before we get into this, because I want to talk to you about the weather. We have some guests that are delayed at the airport. And so we'll get to all that stuff. But first, I have got to say thank you to Rob Borowski, who is, I tell you, man, he is giving his time and his talent, and he is doing an incredible job with technical issues that I'm not even going to try to explain, mostly because I don't even understand them. But thank you so much, Rob Borowski, who is making this possible. Seriously, thank you. And thank you, Hilary Kennedy, HilaryKennedy.com. Now, it's one L.
Yes, one L. So
Okay.
Listen, no one ever misspelled it until Hillary Clinton ran for president. And now everybody misspells it. So Hillary with a one L.
All right, so it's HilaryKennedy.com with one L. And she is also giving her time today and your talent. And I appreciate you doing that because all we're trying to do is just raise money for veterans. That's all we are trying to accomplish today. And you guys, thank you to those of you who have been generously giving. We're already over $2,000 raised.
That is amazing. And we haven't broadcast anything until this moment. You've already
Seriously
had people be that generous. That is really cool.
That is a testament to some great people out there talking to you. And so grateful. We're going to leave the fundraiser up, which is at givesendgo.com/veteransinneed. givesendgo.com/veteransinneed. I thought I would leave that up through noon Eastern on Wednesday.
Perfect.
And then after that, we're going to take every cent that has been donated, and we're going to give half of it to the Mighty Oaks Foundation, and we're going to give half of it to the One Tribe Foundation, formerly 22 Kill. And we're going to do what we can to help veterans because, my gosh, you guys and gals, thankless heroes who don't have to do what you do and what you have done for this country. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yes, and thank you to all of your family members too, because we know that it really is when someone's in the military, the whole family is in the military.
That's
it affects everybody. So
it's very true.
We're so appreciative of your service and those of you who support those who've been in the armed services too. It's just incredible to see how many people have been celebrating Veterans Day this year. I've seen a lot of on social media. I feel like this year, for whatever reason, people
this year,
really have been showing a lot of support, and I love it.
I noticed that too. And if you're watching this live, it's just after 2:00 Eastern on Veterans Day. In fact, it doesn't matter when you're watching this. It's never too late to thank a veteran in your life. Give them a call. Just tell them thank you. And it's a good conversation starter if you haven't talked to somebody in a while too.
That's a good point.
Okay, other people I want to thank. Ian Patterson, who is a friend of mine, who was I'm surrounded by guests from At the Mike Show, by the way. I'd like to point this out. Rob Borowski, Hilary Kennedy, Laura Black, who is making charcuterie, setting up the charcuterie board for our guests in the other room.
What the heck is charcuterie?
Yeah, I said,
What the heck is that?
It's a
Speak English.
It's a lovely feast. And of course, Ian Patterson, who was instrumental in the it's Operation Pineapple, to get good people out of Afghanistan.
Yes.
He was instrumental in that. So surrounded by some good people who are giving their time today. And honestly, if you cannot give, I know times are tough. You don't have to. I got it. Your prayers, honestly, just your prayers for veterans would be greatly appreciated. And again, the website, and feel free to share this website with anybody you want to share it with. Quite frankly, it's givesendgo.com/veteransinneed. So we had some guests that were lined up here. We're gonna have Jacob Schick from One Tribe. We're going to have Hunter Robichaux from Mighty Oaks. but we've got an issue in Dallas right now, and it's the weather.
So this is the second.
You were just
Friday
out
in a
there.
row. Yes, it's awful out there.
Yeah, it is not fun.
It's cold. It's raining. It's amazing because it was like in the 80s earlier this week, and then today it's in the 40s, and
Seriously.
it's pouring down rain, and it's cold. So it's caused some flight delays, and the Veterans Day parade in downtown Dallas, I believe, was canceled because of the wet. So they've just lots of things have been kind of rearranged or pushed back or delayed. So that's what happened with some of our guests.
Yeah. So Jacob's coming from another event, and the driving conditions are impossible. And Hunter his flight is delayed, and he's trying to get over here from the airport.
Well, what I love about having this time though is to kind of go over what their organizations do and what
Yes,
they're
yeah.
about. Because I will be completely honest, I had heard of both organizations, but I really didn't know anything specific about them. I'd heard people mention the name or I'd seen it on social media, but it wasn't until we were kind of preparing things for today that I looked into what Mighty Oaks and One Tribe Foundation actually do. And it's incredible.
Yeah. And if people want to check it out for themselves, because I want you to tell us all about them. It's Mighty Oaks. What is it? Mighty Oaks Foundation. Mighty Oaks Programs. Mighty Oaks Programs.org. Mighty Oaks Programs.org. If you'd like to see what they do over there. And then it's also OneTribeFoundation.org, and that's the number one. OneTribeFoundation.org. Yeah, what are some of the stuff that they do for veterans?
Yeah, I thought this was awesome. So I'll start with Mighty Oaks. They have these instructional sessions. They have like team building activities. They have a bunch of programs that teach those who have been devoted their lives to service to overcome their past experiences and move forward in their lives. And just all of the different testimonials from people that have attended some of their events or their workshops or whatever. It's really neat because it's not just the people who attended, but like a lot of the family members said, I felt like I got my husband back or my wife back or my son back because they returned home and just were a shell of who they were before. And so it's so nice that it's at no cost to that veteran,
Incredible.
Which I think is so cool. And to echo what you said earlier, they said, even if you don't have money to give, because it roughly costs about $2,500 per person to attend an event like this. But they were saying the money, yeah, that's important. But the most important thing that they ask for is prayer. Because they're like, these people, not just the people who are attending, but also the people who work for Mighty Oaks who are putting it together, who are like hosting these trainings. They also need your prayers too, because most of them are former attendees of a Mighty Oaks.
Oh, cool.
Event. Yeah, which I think is really cool because they're someone they've been through the program and they know how it works. So.
Yeah, I cannot imagine what it's like to be a veteran and to honestly just offer yourself to your country. And I'm sincere when I say thank you so much, but it's not like they just go and serve their time and then now everything's great. Now I'm getting back into the real world. And no, I mean, there are so many challenges that we don't even think of just as regular Americans that haven't sacrificed like that. You come back and in a lot of cases, you're dealing with some serious stuff, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual. I mean, the kind of fights that they have to battle after their service are, in many cases, just life and death on their own.
Right.
And that's why these groups like Mighty Oaks and One Tribe, that's why they need our support so that they can go and offer these programs to support our troops.
Well, and I'm sure we'll talk about it with our guests later too, but we looked up all of these different
These are
stats
shocking.
on veterans, and it says veterans are at 57% higher risk of suicide than those who haven't served. 57%. I mean, it's more than 1.5 times the national average. So that's a really scary statistic. 125,000 veterans died by suicide since 2001. It's the second leading cause of death in veterans under the age of 45. So that is why what the One Tribe Foundation and Mighty Oaks, what they're doing is so important because they really are saving lives. They're not just helping people get through something, but they're actually saving lives, which I think is incredible.
I think one of the more stunning things when it comes to talking about veteran suicides is the One Tribe Foundation, and we can talk to Jacob about this, is they used to go by the name 22 Kill because according to I believe it was the it was a stat from the Department of Veteran Affairs were saying that 22 veterans a day were dying by suicide. This was back in 2012. That just is shocking.
It is. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, and by the way, I wanted to throw this out there. If you're a veteran who is struggling with depression or just thoughts of suicide, or you know someone who may be, I wanted to give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline phone number. Please take advantage of this. It's 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255, or you can send a text message to 838-255, 838-255. Please seek help if you even think you might need it. And another thing we will talk to Jacob about is he's been there where he was at the point where he wanted to empty his magazines, take his guns, give it to a friend of his, just because he wasn't trusting himself. So he's been down these dark roads before. I would like to actually, I want to introduce Ian Patterson. I'm going to drag you over here, sir. And you know what? In honor of my dad and my grandfather, and well, you, since we don't have any Air Force related guests today, I'm going to represent the Air Force here.
There we go.
So anyhow, Ian Patterson, thanks for getting these guys to be a part of this. And I appreciate everybody that is doing something here for this. And I appreciate you for your service as well, man. I know you and I have talked in the past. You were a big part. It's Operation Pineapple?
Task Force Pineapple.
Task Force Pineapple. I knew I had that wrong. I mean, you got to tell, first of all, please tell us about your work with that. And then we've got more questions, of course, what we're doing here today.
So Task Force Pineapple, I fell into it. Obviously, we knew the quagmire that was going on in Afghanistan last year during the epic failure of a pullout. Obviously, all of us had been there for years and years and years. As a nation, we've been there for decades. And we all knew somebody who needed to get out.
Yeah.
I was working. Yeah, a lot of good people. I was working families. And kind of what got me started, kind of a backstory. I'll never forget, I was in Jalalabad, Afghanistan, and we had 3 brothers who were barbers. And when the Taliban started to roll through and start to make the push back in weeks before the withdrawal, reached out to one of my contacts there. Hey, are these people all right? Well, I don't know about these people. What about these people? Well, the 3 brothers were barbers there at Fob Fenty, or Jalalabad, as everybody just called it, the airfield. I think one was 14, one was 18, and one was like 21. So they were all pretty young. This is back in 2007 to 2009. But we heard one of the first things they did when they found out that the brothers worked on the base and cut hair is they hung all 3 of them in front of their families. And who knows what else, but that's what the story that we got. Had some interpreters and some things like that we were trying to get out. I picked up a former interpreter in a family that we were basically playing cat and mouse with the Taliban in Kabul with, and then had another family reach out to me. He was the head of rural development for Afghanistan, but he was also part of the United Nations. He held a role with the United Nations. Had older gentleman recently had a stroke. His nephew was in Canada. Next thing you know, Zach Loyce, who, if you've read the book or if you've seen much of the story, Scott Mann was obviously the kind of face of it. Zach Loyce was the operational mind and background of it. Zach's a good buddy of mine from rugby, and we got to talking.
I'm not surprised that Ian plays rugby, by the way. I just want to point out. He also plays hockey.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have thought croquet. So
Yeah. So these guys, Zach and I got to talking, and just randomly through a different connection within the field, he's like, hey, we're doing this. And at first I was working on fundraising. My wife was doing some of the marketing. And then as we started to set up more so as a organization, I ended up moving over to Operation Recovery, which was the funding side of Task Force Pineapple.
Okay.
Still, we have about 4,500 to 6,000 Afghanis that we are still assisting with. That's from clothing to food to
Wow.
medical to basically hiding and keeping these people moving and doing what we need to do.
Ultimately, trying to still get them out of
Still
the
try to
country
get them out of the country
over a year later.
and it's going to be, and let's, if we're going to talk politics, basically the entire focus, the administration in Washington has basically said, forget about these folks. Our concern is Ukraine. So the entire focus of the U.S. government is Ukraine, and for lack of better words, be damned with our other failures. Let's work on another failure now. So, and now with Operation Recovery, we are still doing our fundraising and our stuff for Afghanistan and keeping these people afloat. But now we're setting up aid bases in Poland, Bulgaria, Moldova to assist with the children and things like that. We're working with some other organizations that are going in for mine clearing and as well.
And that Task Force Pineapple, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was your ticket that you knew that these were good guys you were dealing with.
Yeah.
They had to show you a picture of a pineapple
Yeah.
to get past you, right?
Yep. So
just an ingenious thing
it was either verbal or the photo of the pineapple, and that's how you knew that's who the internal contact knew who to get over the wire.
Gotcha.
So
That's amazing.
you guys obviously had these relationships over there, and wherever we have gone, you have nurtured these relationships. And I mean, that, yes, the connections you have with your brothers, I mean, that's one thing. But now you feel like you've left these, like you haven't left these good people behind, but it's got to weigh on you guys constantly that these good people that in many cases help save American lives are left over there.
And that's the kicker. People don't understand. Our motto is U.S. military. We all know it. No one left behind.
Yeah.
You always go back for the fallen, or even today we're still finding Vietnam veterans, still finding World War II veterans remains, and going back in. Well, I mean, these interpreters, these people work side by side with us day in, day out, and we left in the middle of the night and left these people, and they're targets. They're not looked kindly upon with through the Taliban and other organizations, ISIS and everything else that's spinning up within Afghanistan, Al Qaeda. I mean, they're frowned upon, and they'll go to their families and say, turn him over or we'll kill all of you. They'll execute entire generations of family just to get to one. And it's, they were one of us. Yeah. Did they train with us and things like that and brought up? But had it not been for the interpreters and some of these guys and some of the special operations guys that we worked with, there would be none of the missions and the captures and things like that we had without them. So
it's another thing that has to just weigh on a soldier mentally when you come back here. Of like you feel, and again, it's not the fault of our veterans, our troops. It is not theirs. But I know you guys have such honor that you probably internalize that. I would assume that it weighs on the guys coming back to keep thinking about who they did leave behind. It can't help. It can't help the struggles that they have to begin with.
No, exactly. And then, you have a major policy failure, and now you get guys who, for lack of better words, that was their prime or that was their peak. And they lost a major piece of themselves. So that was in combat, whether it was a limb or, the PTSDs and the different struggles that the guys come back for. And now you just middle of the night and do it in a complete way that just disregards everything. I mean, everything that we had accomplished over the 20 years there was gone in days. And, just a simple tweak of not going into the airport in Kabul, which is basically, you and I have discussed this. Kabul is the Alamo. It's in the middle of the city, the airport, CAF. There, you can do nothing there. I mean, you're you're on an island,
Mhm.
so to speak. 30 miles away, we had the largest combat airfield in the world at Bagram.
This is
30 miles away.
heartbreaking.
And we completely abandoned Bagram, left the prisoners in the prison. And the first thing the Taliban did was go get their high value targets, open up the prisons and go. And I mean, it was, even with minimal staffing and force, we could have held Bagram, got all the people that we need to get in and out through Bagram and a 24-hour operation versus running it out of an airport where, as we saw with the bombing that killed the 12 or 13 Marines there at the gate, that could have all been stopped just by putting them at Bagram. Could they have gotten to the gate at Bagram? Yeah. Would it maybe have saved most of those lives? More than likely. Just because of the way the security of the base was set up. You knew it was coming. Literally I wouldn't even say that gate is probably closer than these two buildings are right here as we speak. There's no time to react.
Yeah.
We're coming into the gates at Bagram. It was miles of straight road and hundreds of yards between the last building and where the checkpoints and things like that set. I mean, you would have had to go through checkpoint to get there. And, and I think the big thing that affects most veterans of this whole thing is, what did I give a piece of my life or a piece of my mental capacity for 20 years?
I wonder, I want to know, what do you do with the anger and frustration that you feel? Because it makes me angry and frustrated.
Okay, that's exactly what I was going to say.
And I wasn't someone that saw it firsthand.
Exactly what I was going to say.
can't
As an
imagine.
American, I'm angry. I didn't serve. I cannot imagine what you guys are going through.
Everybody internalizes it and looks at it differently, right? Just like we all do with all different aspects. Personally, was I angry? I was super over the top when all this went down. But you have to take a step back. What they're doing today, or what they did last year, isn't what we did for the 20 years preceding that.
Mm-hmm.
We made an impact on the lives of those people that during our time. We can't look back and say, well, why now, right? For the time that we were there, and each individual troop, soldier, sailor, Marine, airman, we made an impact while we were there. And we made it for the better while we were there.
Yeah.
The frustrating part now, and as opposed to saying, well, I lost buddies die, I lost buddies for what?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the for what was what we were accomplishing while we were there.
Yeah.
And you have to internalize it as that versus it becoming, because it'll consume you. It'll literally consume your thoughts. And the same in Iraq. I mean, Iraq turned as soon as, we pulled out of Iraq. Iraq turned for the worse. And now they're buddy with Iran. And it's, you have to think of it as a point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Your point in time, you made it better.
Yeah.
I look, and it's my favorite story in Afghanistan. I had two very good Afghani friends, I would consider. A guy named Haji Guljan, who was our everything guy. Anything you wanted, anything you needed, you could get from Haji Guljan. And you just go to his little bazaar, his little shop on the other side of the airfield. And but once Haji Guljan got to know you, he wouldn't say a word to you until you sat down and had a cup of tea with him. And you'd sit, and I would just go over there when I had time, and I'd just sit and talk about what it was like because growing up there, and then from the Russians to the Americans, and how much, and he would always say how much better his life was and stuff like that now versus then. And this man was so protected. He would sell you something if you had no money and write a paper IOU. But if you left without paying him, he would turn it into the commander at Jalalabad. And the commander at Jalalabad would forward it on to your commander and have you arrested until you paid.
That's awesome.
Yep.
He was a businessman.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's special operations guys that we call them the MERV. They're in Jalalabad that I worked with. They had a cook, and a cook had a young son. It was just him and his son. And the cook walked with a really poor limp. Couldn't figure out. And then just one day, he couldn't speak English, but you always, you know, I literally, my hut that I lived in was right next to his little facility, I guess, where they lived, and he would cook, and, you know, you'd have you'd know a little bit of Pashto, you'd know a little bit of English, and you'd try to talk to what you could.
Sure.
Had my mom send a soccer ball over to the kid.
Oh, nice.
But when you got talking and they wear the long gowns, the traditional Afghani dress, he's like, Americans good, Taliban bad. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, no, you don't understand. I'm like, no. And he pulls his dress up, and the region of Afghanistan he was from in the north, the Taliban had tried to get in, and he just happened to be a bystander. And they thought it would be funny one day to try to blow his leg off with an AK-47. And obviously he still they were able to save his leg, but almost all of the quadricep and hamstring had been completely, and it was just the Taliban playing a game to try to literally shoot the man's leg off. But they were so friendly. Like every time I'd walk by, he'd wave me over and he'd offer food. I'm like, no. And then you can't, but in their culture, you can't say no.
Oh, no.
And I have no idea what I'm eating, but it was everything I ate was amazing, whether I knew what it was or not. But I learned a lot about the culture and the stuff. And I think back, and that's what I went there for. You know, we went there to protect our way of life and to get the people out from, you know, the Al Qaeda and stuff like that.
Sure.
But for me, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated that we are where we are, but in the whole, we did good. And same in Iraq, we did good. We did good for those people. And, but it's a tough one. There's guys, I mean, I know guys who saw some pretty, that just then to this day, they still can't.
And I want you, because you're going to be sitting in this chair in a little bit. And when you are, I want you to talk about some of the stuff that you do, because you mentioned the rage could consume you. And I would imagine that you have to find your buddies, you know, find people who have gone through these kind of experiences and just talk, right? And keep yourself distracted. Like, because I want you to talk about the hockey stuff that you do later.
Yeah.
So be prepared. We're going to put you in this chair. And right now, I think we actually have a guest here. Come on in. Hunter Robichaux, right?
Sir.
Thank you so much from Mighty Oaks Foundation. Thank you. Come on in. Thank you, Ian.
Yep,
We're going to have you back over.
All right, which one?
Have a seat
This
right
one?
here.
Oh.
That's fine, man. Thanks for, I mean, I know you've been battling this monsoon.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate it so much. Hunter Robichaux, and it's mightyoaksprograms.org.
Yep, mightyoaksprograms.org.
Yeah. So this, correct me if I'm wrong, your dad started this.
My dad did.
Yes. Okay, Chad. He's a hero, man.
Yeah.
and we appreciate you guys doing what you do over there. And we cannot wait to send half of these donations to your organization, because, you know, we've been to the website. We know what you guys are doing over there, but we want you to tell us, because there's people right now watching this live stream, and maybe they're thinking, all right, I want to help out, but I don't really know a lot about these groups. Could you please tell us what Mighty Oaks does?
Yeah, absolutely. Where's the camera at?
You're
I have to look.
on
Right here.
this camera. Yeah,
All right,
there you
awesome.
are.
Well, thank you all for tuning into this, and thank you for having me here.
Sure thing, man.
So Mighty Oaks is quite remarkable with what we do. We've been around since the end of 2010.
Okay.
And this is when my father came back from his deployments. He obviously was struggling with post-traumatic stress from the things that he challenged within his life, from childhood to going into the military, dealing with things in the military, and ultimately finding hope and healing through Christ and starting Mighty Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
Since Mighty Oaks started in 2010, we've been able to serve over 200,000 active duty service members that are stationed on bases and go to them and provide resiliency events. And then with that, we run a program called the Legacy Program. So we have 35 to 40 programs per year. We've had over 4,500 graduates through our program, and not one of them has paid a single dollar to come through our program.
That is incredible.
Yeah. And the reason they haven't paid a single dollar is because we raise money to get them to our program for free.
So, like, hypothetically, I mean, the money that you're getting from this live stream, this fundraiser today, which, by the way, I haven't said this in a while, givesendgo.com/veteransinneed. You take that money, and then you're just able to help veterans and their families through that.
Exactly. So to send one veteran through our program, it costs $2,500. That includes their flight to and from home to our program, and all the food, everything that we provide at the program. That's what the $2,500
Explain,
goes.
kind of in a nutshell, they're like a thumbnail sketch of what this program does. Like a veteran
Yes.
comes
They
to
show
you.
up and then
Yeah,
what's
take
that?
it from there.
Yeah, so we'll start with the application process. So they go into our website, mightyoaksprograms.org, and they apply for the program. Once they apply for the program, they're contacted within 24 hours from one of our applications program managers.
Okay.
So they'll be contacted and they'll be slated for a program. Once they're slated for a program, we bring them to one of our 5 facilities across the United States, and we start on a Monday and end on a Friday. And we are a peer-to-peer based mentorship program that leads men through biblical manhood. That's what we really base Mighty Oaks off of. It's not a clinical approach. It's, hey, I've struggled with this in my life. You might be struggling with this in your life right now. Look at what I did differently in my life to get to where I'm at now. And we walk alongside of these guys. We walk them through classes like character, discipline, money and possessions, a lot of things that guys might struggle with that were in the military or just everyday common struggles. We walk through these chapters of our program with them and lead them to a path to authentic manhood.
So after that week that they spend with you guys, are there resources that they can access after the fact?
So we have a full aftercare team.
Oh, wow.
So for the day that they graduate to exactly 1 year after they graduate, they're contacted at least once a week by one of our aftercare team members. But that's just like skimming the surface.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
we have outposts all across the United States. So wherever they live, we find a church for that man or woman that comes through our program.
Wow.
We get them connected into that church. We get them connected into an outpost. We get them connected into other organizations that might be in their area that we're not in, because we don't want to take all the credit. There's many organizations in the United States that are doing amazing and great work. So if we can pass some of these guys off to these other organizations, we want to be able to spread the word out that there is hope and healing for veterans and first responders that are hurting.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, and I've had a lot of close friends that have served, and I feel like one of the biggest challenges is, if you serve, you're taught to be mentally, emotionally, physically tough.
Mm-hmm.
And they've said it can be really hard to reach out and ask for help or say, I need help, or admit that they need help. So that's one part of it. But I also love what you guys are doing is you're making it so simple to get that help. Once they are able to get to a place where they're like, hey, I want to apply, I would like to attend. You're making it easy for them to come and get that help without having to worry about the financial aspect. Because I feel like a lot of times people get to a place where they go, okay, I'm ready to admit that I could use some help or some guidance. But then financially, that's such a barrier sometimes for people. So I love that you guys take that barrier away too, so that people can go.
Is that the hardest step? Getting someone to reach out to just say, hey, I need help? Is that the hardest?
It can be. It can be sometimes. It depends on the person itself. Sometimes you'll have a wife apply for their husband because their husband is like, I don't need any help, and I'm not going to go to an organization that talks about Jesus. Well, their wife applies for them, and they're like, I'm leaving you, or you're going to the program. They come to the program, and then their wife is like, he's the most amazing human being I've ever met on the planet. So you run into 2 types of guys that are just like, I was forced to come to this program. I had no other option. And guys are like, this is my last chance.
Yeah.
I was going to kill myself 2 days ago. And for some reason, an ad popped up on Facebook when I was looking through Facebook.
That's what I want to ask you.
Yeah.
How are you reaching these veterans? How are they finding out about you? Obviously, we're doing this live stream, and I hope that if it reaches one person and saves one veteran's life.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I just wonder, how do you guys go about, I guess, marketing?
Yeah, the word of mouth for Mighty Oaks is awesome because people don't stop talking about it.
That's good.
That's an amazing thing about us. Also, our marketing, or the way we market Mighty Oaks, we do massive blasts on social media.
Okay.
Obviously, my dad is always on the news and all over the media. So every time he talks about something, he's talking about Mighty Oaks as well.
Good.
And so he has a big social media presence. So if he's able to blast out Mighty Oaks, it's going to start to trickle down everywhere. So media is where we get most of our stuff. And then the military itself
Okay, good.
actually sends guys on orders
Good.
to our
I
program.
was actually wondering that, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask you guys today is, does the military, does it actually actively promote you guys as far as, hey, here's a resource that you might need, or if there's I hope there's a relationship there. It sounds like there is. That's excellent.
It started with the Marine Corps. So it started with Wounded Warrior Battalion West,
Okay.
which was originally like our main, like when we started this, that was like our main pull to get guys to come to our program, because we had our foot in the door with them and they saw what we were doing. Actually, our national programs director, Brandon Kunith, he came from Wounded Warrior Battalion West. And so he came through the whole pipeline, and he's really he has a massive impact on what our national programs is now. So to see how our relationship with the military has grown from Wounded Warrior Battalion West, just the Marine Corps originally, to the Air Force, Navy, and all the other branches.
Mm-hmm.
We have very high connections in the SEAL community. So we're always in Coronado doing stuff, and then Coronado is always sending guys over to us. We are very involved in the chaplain program within both of MCRD Paris Island and MCRD San Diego, which is the 2 recruit depots for the Marine Corps. My dad goes and speaks there every quarter at both of those locations.
Excellent.
So that we're able to get the word out to about Mighty Oaks to these recruits that are just going into the Marine Corps, so that they're able to know that there's help.
Back of their mind the whole time, huh?
Yeah.
See, and I'm glad to hear you say that there is that relationship, because I was hoping there wasn't going to be some sort of hesitancy between the government and you guys. And I'm so grateful to hear that it sounds like they know from the get-go, hey, you guys need to be aware of this. I know your dad served. Was your dad a Navy SEAL?
My dad was a recon Marine.
Recon, okay.
Yeah.
And what? Because I know
he's a 3rd generation Marine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Proud Marine family.
I apologize. I should have known that. Yeah, because I know you guys are both veterans, right?
Yeah.
And I would love to hear your story. I would just love to hear your own experience. And if you want to share it, I realize military guys, you make it awkward when you start saying, talk about yourself. But at the same time, I'm just getting to know you from this conversation right here. And I would love everyone else to have an opportunity to meet you as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you said, I'm a 3rd generation Marine. Like the Hank Williams song, it's a family tradition. Yeah, I had no other choice. Really.
Yeah, no other choice.
Yeah. My grandfather served with the Marine Corps in Vietnam, and he got out of the Marine Corps after Vietnam. He joined originally because he was driving his friends in a car to high school, and they got in an accident, and all 3 of his friends died. So he originally joined to go to Vietnam to die, but he realized that he liked being in the Marine Corps, and it was his purpose. So he ended up making it through Vietnam. He was small like me, so they made him a tunnel rat, of course. So he came back, had my dad, and then years later, my dad joined the Marine Corps. And growing up, around my dad and all of his buddies, and him going do stuff in Afghanistan and all the other countries, I was like, I want to do that. So I started training basically from when I was a little kid to become a Marine. And in 2014, I joined the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And that was I finally found my calling in life. I thought at the time, because I was like, this is what I've always wanted to do. And so I became a forward observer in the Marine Corps. I went to a unit called 3rd Anglo. Our primary mission at that unit was to provide close air support, naval gunfire, and artillery. We would be the guys on the ground that would call it in.
Okay.
So in 2019, I got to deploy to Afghanistan. It was the last year that the U.S. military was actually able to still do stuff. Trump was in office. General Mattis was our Secretary of Defense.
Okay.
So our hands weren't necessarily tied behind our back like they were with the Obama administration and our current administration.
Okay.
So I finished up my deployment in Afghanistan, and I came back, and it was about my time to decide if I was going to re-enlist in the Marine Corps, because I signed a 6-year contract. If I was going to re-enlist or if I was going to get out. And I was thinking about getting out and becoming a pilot, like going to the Air Force and trying to fly.
Okay.
But I just felt like this tug in my heart, like I need to do something that's more involved with guys that have struggled in the way I've struggled. Because when I got back from that deployment, I felt like my sense of purpose and hope and like my mission task was gone. I felt like there was nothing for me to do. And I felt like if I would have went back into the military to be a pilot, it would have been me chasing a dream that would ultimately lead to the same area I was in. Yeah, I think I would absolutely love flying a jet at this sound or the speed of sound. Like that's awesome to me. Yeah. But I think I would have been right back to where I was when I got back from Afghanistan, because it was not an easy deployment. We had some very challenging times. So I talked to my dad and I was like, hey, like, what would it look like if I worked for Mighty Oaks? And he's like, I've been waiting for this question forever. And so,
I love it.
yeah, so there was a pastor that was really involved in our lives at the time, Pastor David Baird. He passed away last year, but he was really mentoring me through these few months of don't give up. Your purpose is going to come back. And once you find your purpose, it's going to be even stronger than it was in the Marine Corps. And he was more than true. So I began working for Mighty Oaks. I started in a really ground level position.
Sure.
I've never been given any handouts, especially working for my dad. He's like one of the hardest people to work for.
I can't imagine you would. I mean,
Yeah.
we got a military dad.
Yeah. So my original job for Mighty Oaks was just calling donors saying, thank you for your donations. Like, I appreciate what you do for Mighty Oaks, and thank you so much. And I mean, it's amazing to see, like when I was in that position to be so humbled by people. I'll never forget of this one gentleman I talked to in Marietta, Georgia. I won't say his name.
That's my hometown.
Really?
Marietta, Georgia, northwest of Atlanta. Yes, sir.
That's wild.
Walton High School.
Yeah. So I was talking to this guy, and he's like, I don't have a lot of money. I live off Social Security, but I feel God has been putting it on my heart for the past 5 years to give every month to Mighty Oaks what I can.
Wow.
And the man would give $25 a month to Mighty Oaks, and he doesn't make a lot of money, but that $25 adds up. And like that just like hit my heart so much, because people can be so selfless in certain ways and just give what they can. I talked to one of our biggest donors, and this guy's like a mentor to me too. Like I do a lot of international work, which I'll get into with him. But he's like, man, Mighty Oaks wouldn't be able to operate if you didn't have donors like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing I want to take the occasion here. One person today, because my day job is at the Blaze with Pat Gray Unleashed. And somebody during the program this morning donated $18, because that's a funny number on the show that we're just 18. We're always saying 18. Okay. And so I've noticed as the day has gone on, there have been so many people who have given $18, and it just makes me smile every time I see one of these $18 donations come in.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be a lot. And if you can't give anything, like I said earlier, your prayers are so appreciated. These veterans need our prayers. But if it's something where you want to give, but you think, look, I can't afford this or so, pick it up.
Every bit helps.
$18, 18, you know, or $1, whatever.
I always think like if I didn't go by Starbucks or I didn't run through Chick-fil-A, you know, a couple of times next week or a couple of times this month, and I donated that instead, I can give up getting a coffee or getting a 6-pack of chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
You know, and it could make such a big difference, because there's some little things, little luxuries in life that we could do without and use that money to get.
Yeah. Hold on one moment here. Is Jacob available?
Yeah.
Hey, come on in here. Don't go anywhere, because we still want to talk to you. Okay, Hunter? Jacob Schick from OneTribeFoundation.org.
Hello.
Have a seat, sir. Thank you. I know the weather has been insane, and we appreciate you fighting through the monsoon to get here.
Yeah.
OneTribeFoundation.org. That's the number one.
Correct.
For the website. Thanks for making it. And please just tell us what your organization does to help veterans that have gone through unspeakable things. And I want to talk to you about your story in a moment as well. But first,
Okay, sure.
about this organization.
We actually started as 22 Kill, and started the 22 push-up challenge in 2013. And of course, it went viral after The Rock did it. I mean,
That helps things.
yeah, I mean, tens of thousands of people did it before The Rock, all over the world. Not that we're not grateful for that. We're thankful for The Rock doing that. And but it was never set up for monetary gain. It was set up for awareness. We knew that there was a problem within the warrior community, and we were burying our friends. We wanted the world to know this was a problem. And you can't change a problem without education. And so that's where the 22 push-up challenge was birthed. And then came 22 kill. And we started receiving a lot of support, and we decided, look, we gotta do something with this. I mean, if we're gonna help these warriors live a life well lived, we gotta keep our hands on them all the way through their journey, through healing. And so we ended up establishing a traditional and several non-traditional wellness programs that are strictly focused on mental and emotional wellness. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And just a little over a year ago, we transitioned over to One Trap Foundation, meaning the human trap. And that's because we serve veterans, military, law enforcement officers, frontline healthcare workers, first responders, and their families. And so, we needed a more inclusive name to let these men and women that serve know that they can come to us.
And by the way, 22 kill,
Mhm.
we mentioned earlier, that was because the Veterans Department estimated
Yes.
22
Veterans a day.
Veterans a day.
That was in 2012. They came out with that study, the 22 a day.
suicide.
I've heard from a lot of people saying, it's not the actual number. And I'm like, no kidding. I mean, it's a government study. Like
Probably higher.
like it's, I mean, we're not naive to that fact. One is too many, period.
Yes.
And so the number, we're the original 22, whatever. And then you saw a lot of them pop up, and a lot of them still doing stuff, and it's great. I mean, it takes all of us. The reason, again, one tribe's human tribe. We all bleed red. I mean, that's not a coincidence. We're all connected by default.
So how did you how did you feel this calling? Because I read a story about you walking into a 7-Eleven.
Oh, here we go.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that sound familiar? And
I didn't tell the story,
Oh.
but this is but go ahead. Yeah.
No, I don't want to say.
No, say the story. Say the story.
Where you gave a homeless man some money and told him that he mattered. I mean that's what I read, and you made him realize that you matter, and that seemed like, according to the story, that's kind of what got everything started for you. If that's not accurate, then
no. I mean, it started well before that. Okay.
Because you, sir, I know were injured. I want you to tell that story as well.
Sure.
Because if anyone knows, it would be you, and I want you to describe, because you have gone through hell.
Yeah, well, I just had a bad day at work in 2004.
Bad day at work.
In Iraq. I mean, that's what it was. It was a rough day at the office. I mean, could have happened to anybody. And
you had a premonition.
Yeah, no, I knew it was going to happen. I'm a third generation combat Marine. I came by that life pretty honestly. And after my grandfather fought in Iwo Jima in World War II in Korea, my uncle in Vietnam, and I knew what I was going to do when I was 8.
Yeah.
Most people don't have that conviction, and I was very, very blessed to have that at a very young age, because I was very close to my grandmother growing up. I never met my grandfather. He died 2 years before I was born. But my grandfather was a Marine's Marine, and he was, I remember reading a letter that he had written my grandmother, and he said, when we hit the beach, I don't think that my boots ever hit sand. I think I was just running on my dead brothers. And that's why guys from our era, they're like, oh, we had it so bad in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm like, shut up. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. We just didn't. And that's the truth of the matter, and my grandmother.
It's interesting for you to say that, considering what you personally went through.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the deal, man. When I signed the dotted line, that was unconditional. And luckily, I was my grandmother was very honest with me about the way the world works and about society. And, we try and pass that on to our boys and let them know, just so the world doesn't give a damn about your feelings. You got to be convicted in who you are, and you got to be in love with that person staring back at you in the mirror, because everything in your life will be dictated off that emotion. And you live with conviction, because you get one shot. This isn't a dress rehearsal. And, when I joined the Marines, it was the beginning of my senior year, and I didn't tell anybody because I thought that was a good idea. And it turns out I probably should have run it by a couple people, but I didn't.
bro.
My father found out at my high school graduation when he met my recruiter in his dress blues, and he was pissed.
Wow.
He was not happy about it, and I didn't understand that. As a teenager, I was like, I thought you'd be proud of me. You're a banker. Like, what are you upset about? But he had seen the after effects with his father and his older brother, and he was just worried about his kid. That's all that was. And that didn't dawn on me until much later.
Yeah.
But, I went to boot camp in it was around late September, early October 2001. And because I wasn't supposed to go till December, but then 9/11 happened. And being a combat billet, if you were a combat billet, you were going. And as if Marine Corps drill instructors needed any more motivation to be Marine Corps drill instructors, they definitely had it at that time. And with the last name like Schick, and being a first squad leader, and then my guide's last name was Schmitter, so you can guess what we had to answer to for 3 months. But I never questioned throughout my training and boot camp or school of infantry, or once I connected with my unit, I never questioned, what did I do? Where I'm supposed to be ever. I knew I was right where I was supposed to be. Even that day in Iraq in September 2004. And
Hit an IED.
yeah, it was a triple stack tank mine. It was
You were thrown 30 feet in the air and never lost consciousness.
no, but and my gunny will tell you it's because I landed on my head. He always says if I'd have landed in any other part of my body, I'd have died immediately. And I had this when they called the react, I just had this bad feeling in my gut when we got out to Dulab, because our primary area of operation was Sunni Triangle. And then in the summer of 2004, we were busy. Whether you wanted to be or not, you were going to be busy at that time in the Triangle of Death, because Unicorn Triangle was already taken. So they called it the Triangle of Death. And that react got called, and I walked out of the tent, and just a bad feeling in my gut went in my throat, and I knew we were going to get hit. I didn't know about what or how bad it was going to be, but I believe it was a cross between God and my grandfather from beyond the grave, letting me know that, hey, your day's about to suck. And so strap in, and took the bomb blanket out of my CO's Humvee and went to the lead vehicle, because we operated in two-door soft-top Humvees for the react teams, what we had. And back here at that time, everybody was saying they need more armor. They don't have enough armor. And we were like, how many times have you been shot at driving? Like, we need our vehicles to be fast as possible. And trust me when I say the Humvees aren't built for speed. And, so I went to the lead vehicle, kicked the driver out of the driver's seat, and took the radio from the radio man, and told all the guys to button up. If they gave it to you for protection, put it on right now. And by the time I got in the seat and got ready to go, they all knew that I knew something was up. And I punched it, and 3 minutes later, we hit that triple stack, and pressure plate ignited. Front left tire hit it, blew up directly beneath me, blew me 30 feet to the top of the Humvee, and stuck the landing with my head. Because
you're injured, man.
Yeah, when I hit the deck, I knew in the air it was going to be bad, and I knew it was bad. And when I hit the deck, it took a minute for me to even get my bearings, and I was looking for my rifle, because first thing is, you got to have a way to fight. And I was able to figure out, had an idea where I was, because I could hear the guy that I kicked out of the driver's seat yelling my name. He was yelling Chick. And because he looked over and there was no me. When we hit the bomb, the dashboard disengaged, the steering wheel hit me in my chest, and it made all my mags explode, because we wear them on the front of our flak jacket. So all the springs went, and there's rounds everywhere in my blood, but no me. So he thought I was what we refer to as red misted in the wind. And but I couldn't breathe, because my lungs were collapsed, all my ribs were broken. And I wanted to tell him, like, hey, two things. I need you to stop yelling. because you're making us a bigger target, and I'm okay-ish. And I started my self-assessment, and I could only see out of my left eye because my shatterproof lens is shattered. May or may not be false advertising.
Yeah.
And didn't see out of my right eye for about 3 months. On my left eye, I started my self-assessment, and my left leg was wrapped around itself, and my tibia and my fibia were exposed. My combat boot was blown off. And I thought two things when I first saw that. One, that's not supposed to be like that. And two, I knew it was a significant bomb, because to blow my combat boot off and not take my foot with it, that takes a lot of force. And then saw daylight through my left arm, and part of my left hand was hanging down by my left elbow. Again, all my ribs were broken. I had burns throughout my body, and then that shrapnel in my face and my chin and my neck. And, I just made a deal with God right there. I just said, hey, big man, just all I ask is, because I knew I was dying. And I just said, don't take me in front of my family. That's all I ask. As soon as the skids leave the deck, I'm all yours. But just please don't allow my brothers to watch me die. And that was the deal that I made. And then shortly thereafter, the guys got up to me and, we got you, Shay. We got you, brother. And a few of them, first thing I said when I was able to get a breath is I said, develop 360. Set up a security cordon. And they were like, oh, yeah. I'm like, yeah, we're still at war. So let's do war
incredible
stuff.
Isn't that
You
something?
had the ability to still, you're still thinking strategy and with all that going on, that is incredible.
I mean, I would like to think it was that, but I really just didn't feel like getting shot at that moment. And I was like, the security cordon would be great. Just give me a chance. Like, I don't know what it's like to get shot by a 7.16 millimeter, and I'm not
Don't want to find out.
not curious to know. I mean, I know what they do, but I don't know how they feel, and I'd like to keep it that way. That's probably why I said it. But I mean, we do the same thing 1,000 times every day because we gotta, muscle memory. It's better to be able to react without thought. You're more effective.
Tell us about, and by the way, just another opportunity here to mention the website, givesendgo.com/veterans in need. Going to take every cent that is raised between now and noon Eastern on Wednesday, and then we're going to send half of it to you and half of it to you, and know that you will go and do the Lord's work with it. Tell us about OneTribeFoundation.org and what you guys do for veterans in need.
Yeah, sure. So, the good thing is I'm honored to be here too with Mighty Oaks, because I'm very familiar with what they do, and it takes all of us. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all one team.
Yeah, we're all one tribe, right?
Yeah.
We all, and I tell people around the world, if I take my knife out and I stick you with it, you're gonna leak red. We're connected by default. That's not a coincidence. And we're very convicted in what we do because of the demons that we fought. And myself too. I mean, there's a reason that next week I've been 5 years clean and sober. I mean, there's a reason for that. I suck at all things in moderation. Good, bad, or indifferent, it'll be a hell of a show. Like, it's just the way it is with my family and my DNA. And that's why the work we do is in the mental and emotional wellness arena is so vital, is because it's based on a very real foundation. And these are majority of these people are warriors or directly connected to warriors who've been affected by the wake that we leave in our path when we come home or get out of the military, which we know. It's not I tell everybody I was never a good patient, and that didn't stop for a long time. And so we want to give these men and women a safe place to come and drop the bravado and be human, because we forget that regardless of our title, whether it's, soldier, sailor, airman, coastie, Marine, Space Forcean.
Space Forcean.
Oh,
Yeah.
Space Forcean. Oh, I like
As
that.
Stormtrooper.
I like that a lot.
I don't know if that's even
We're
correct.
making it a thing.
We like it, yeah.
Space Forcean.
It's a thing now. Regardless of what our title is, we're human first. And you can, no matter the training you do, no matter how intense or what you go through or do or see, you're human first. We still have the same emotions and feelings as everybody else, and you can only compartmentalize so much. You know, it's a pressure cooker, but everybody knows that from unaddressed childhood trauma. And no one can tell me that they haven't faced it. I mean, I've read every study and white paper there is on the topic, you know, and so we're able to bring in these men and women and their families, because we got to treat the family unit. You have to. You can't just treat the individual. And we let them know that you're worthy of living well. That's the only way we're going to honor our brothers and sisters who came before us. And those are going to come after us is by living well. There's no other way. There's no award. There's no medal. There's no plaque or ribbon or piece of paper that's going to justify you living an unproductive life. You want to honor them and set the bar, live well, day in and day out. And the only way you can do that is lean in and love hard.
I love that. I would love to know from the two of you, for those of us that know people who are maybe transitioning out of the military and they're going to be starting civilian life again, what advice would you give? What is the best way to support them? Because I had a friend that was in the Army. He did, I think, 8 years in the Army. And when he got out, he said, I didn't realize how hard civilian life was going to be, because he's like, I'm used to so much structure, and I'm used to, and it was little things, but it was making him incredibly depressed, because he was like, I don't feel like I fit anywhere anymore. I can't function the way I used to. And of course, I was so young, I didn't know how to support him. I didn't know what he'd been through or what his daily life was like when he was in the military. So for those of us that know someone who's making that transition, what advice would you give? How can we support them in the best possible way?
I think the best way is to come around that individual that's getting out of the military and let them know that you're there for them and they're not alone, because they're making a drastic change from coming out of a work environment where you wake up at a certain time, you eat at a certain time, you work out at a certain time, you go to the field, you're with your buddies all the time, and then you end up at home in the civilian life and you don't have that structure and you don't have that routine, and you feel like your purpose and your mission is gone, like I was talking about earlier. I think the best way to get around that, combat that, is getting yourself connected. Don't become someone that's going to become alone. And
Don't be an island.
Don't be an island. Yeah. You need to stay connected. And you don't necessarily have to be connected to veterans and military guys only. There's a lot of great people out there that were not in the military. And yeah, they might not understand the certain things that you went through in the military, but those people might be able to give you some really sound and good advice on how to get through life. Like when my dad came back, he had a pastor that was walking alongside him. When I came back, I had a pastor and a few buddies that were civilians walking alongside of me, leading me to where I needed to get, because I was in that exact same spot of what the heck is going on. This world that I'm coming back to is completely different.
Yeah, it's look, the truth of the matter is, and you know, we're so spoiled in this country. I mean, literally have anything we want at our fingertips. I mean, I just left a deal at a college, and I didn't say the college, where they had robots delivering food in a heated little robot unit. I'm not kidding. Just directly to wherever the phone was located. And I was just thinking, like, man, this is hard knock life, you know. And and it's like, I feel like it, and I say this with 100% empathy and sympathy for the people that are about to transition or transitioning, but toughen up. Nobody owes you anything. You volunteered. Right. And if you think you're going to be able to do it alone, you're not that tough. Be smart at the same time. It's supposed to be hard because it's worth doing. And so for me, it's like you try and do it alone. That's fine. But just like during the global pandemic, majority of the world learned there's a drastic difference between being lonely and alone.
Yes.
Those are two very different things. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself, because we're not equipped as human beings to do this life thing on our own. And the truth of it is, being a warrior is 100 times easier than being a civilian. It's inherently more dangerous, but 100 times easier. That's just the truth. There's not a day that goes by I don't look at my wife or my kids and go, man, I just wish I was in the middle of nowhere hunting somebody who's hunting me, because it's easier. When's the last time you had your family and friends together all in one group and you asked where you want to go out to eat? Because it's like you just asked everybody, all right, let's get together and resolve the theory of relativity,
So true.
right? And so my thing, let's
Now we
adhere.
hit close to home. didn't it?
Let's adhere to the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When you get out and you're transitioning, you don't have to figure it out right away. That's not the point. How many people do you know that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s? They're like, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. That's okay. But lean in and love hard while you're doing it. Find victory in your vulnerability and refuse to be a hostage to your pride because you're going to grow. You're not supposed to be comfortable. You never grow in your comfort zone.
Mm.
None of us grew in the military in our comfort zone.
Yeah.
You were thrown together with a bunch of people you didn't know and were told by someone who was more important than you, this is your new family, figure it out. And if you figure it out well, you'll continue to be undefeated.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The transition is not easy. Find an organization, whether it's Mighty Oaks or One Tribe, I don't care. Find something that speaks to your soul and that feeds your soul, and do a little bit of that often.
I know with today being Veterans Day, you've got a lot of commitments, and I appreciate you coming up here. Before you head to your next stop, could you kind of tell us, and I'm going to want the same thing from you, what is the biggest need for your organizations? What if someone said, what's the most important thing you need right now, other than the obvious thing, prayer and money?
Yeah.
What is it that you guys need the most, would you say?
So I answer this question the same way, regardless of where I am. And it's because everybody's got it. And it's either everybody has three things of value. And it's not equal, but everybody has three things of value: time, talent, or treasure. And if you want to help, because a lot of people are like, I want to help and I don't know how. And it's like, but are you choosing ignorance, or what's happening there? Because Google knows everything.
Yeah.
And so, my thing is, if you're not willing to sacrifice some of one of those three things of value,
Right.
you're a talker. And we have plenty of those.
Right.
That's the only way you can help. Sacrifice and service are synonymous. You cannot do one without the other. And if you're not willing to sacrifice some of either your time, talent, or treasure, you're not ready to help.
Understood.
You need doers.
That's it. I mean, we have plenty of talkers. I mean, y'all see the same TV channels I do.
Yeah.
Would you say that's
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody is always like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. And where's the action behind that? Like, that's like my challenge to everybody listening to this. Like, if you can give. If you can do something with your talents, do something with your talents. If you know somebody that is in a bad spot right now and served in the military, show them this, what's going on right now. Show them our organizations. We want to help. We want you to spread the word that there is organizations out there that is willing to put our hand out and save you from the sea that's drowning you. We want you guys to make sure that you spread this word so much that we take that 22 a day and drop it to zero.
Yeah.
I hope to God I see that number drop to zero in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Look, the one thing as human beings that we can all agree on, this is regardless whether you don the cloth of the nation or not, the one thing that puts us in the same arena on level playing ground is trauma and tragedy. It's the one thing we can all agree on. That's regardless of race, color, creed, religion, socioeconomic status, political ideation, political affiliation. You will get hit in the mouth by pain and suffering and trauma and tragedy. And it can't be measured, right? And there's a reason for that. Like when someone tells me like, oh, Jake, I can't imagine what you've gone through with having a prosthetic and over 50 operations, over 20 blood transfusions. I've only ever had surgery on my shoulder. And I'm like, well, how do you know that your surgery on your shoulder isn't as bad as what I went through? They're like, well, look at you. I'm like, that's fair. But quantifiably on a piece of paper, show me how what I went through is worse than what you went through. Like, well, I can't. Like, do you think there's a reason for that? It's all relative. And it's the one thing that puts us in the same arena.
Yeah.
We got to put the stuff we hear from the talking heads aside, and lean in and love hard on the humanality.
Yeah,
You know, I think
everybody
that we're gonna
experiences
advance.
trauma in some way.
Yeah.
Whether that's in combat or you can be like a soccer mom, Sally can be driving down the road and an 18-wheeler drives in front of her and takes out the car in front of her, kills everybody in the car. She's probably traumatized because she's never been in an environment where everybody in front of her might die. Everybody experiences some sort of trauma. You don't have to be in the military to experience trauma.
Right.
We're all human beings.
So on Veterans Day, what's the best thing that you can receive on Veterans Day from the people in your life? A phone call, just a thank you for your service. Like, what can we be doing today to let the people who serve know that means the world to us?
You want to take that one first?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm blessed enough to work for an organization where I get thank you for your service a lot. And like, I truly appreciate when someone tells me thank you for my service, but no one ever made me do it. No one ever said, no one put my hand on the paper and made me sign my name with a pen. Like I chose to because I felt like I needed to serve my country because my country's given me so much. And when you say thank you for your service to someone, I would challenge someone to go more in depth, talk to them, ask them what their name is, what branch they served with. Don't ask combat questions like, did you kill anybody or did you see anything crazy? Don't ask that type of stuff, but try to get to know that person.
Sure.
Like, where do you guys live? What do you do now? What's your life been like outside of the military? Do you need anything? Does your family need anything? Get genuine and on their level
That's
instead
good.
of trying to be a spectator, trying to hear a cool story.
Understood.
That's great.
Would you have a similar answer to that, Jacob?
Yeah, I would second that. But I would also challenge both the person saying it and the veteran.
Yeah.
First, the person saying it, are you saying it for you or them? First and foremost. And secondly, for the veteran, regardless of how it makes you feel, you know, because when people tell me thank you for your service, I always just say you're worth it. And it usually just stops it right there. There's no follow up with anything because I'm just by my response, you know, making them go introspective. Like, oh, damn it, am I worth it? You know?
I like it.
And so for me, it's like a win-win for everybody. But I would challenge the vet to think about that. You know, why did you join? You know, whether you are from generations of warriors or you're the first generation, why did you join? And what does it mean to you? And what example do you want to leave that person of being one of the less than 0.5% of society? You know, and that's the thing, man. Again, it's the only way we're going to honor them, the ones that we've buried and the ones that are going to come after us, is by living well. I would just challenge everybody listening. You know, wake up and live well, knowing that you're going to have hard days. They're guaranteed. But that's why you find your tribe and you love them hard.
Ranger Up had this shirt. Really good friends with Vic that runs Ranger Up, but it said, live your life worthy of their sacrifice. I think that's a challenge to all live by.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to your families too, because
No
you're
kidding.
both third generation. So I
Seriously.
mean, the example that you guys got obviously was serving and living well and motivated you to also want to do the same thing.
Yeah, look.
That's awesome.
I don't know if I can speak for anyone else, but I'll tell you this. I'll never be able to repay this country for what it's given me, but I promise you I'll die trying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the fact. I mean, it's what it's given me and my family, and regardless of all her faults, still the best country in the world.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, all politics aside, America still remains the heart of this world.
Understood.
That's right.
Amen.
Yeah. Try protesting in Syria. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't forget the website. If you would like to donate to these two great and deserving organizations, it's givesendgo.com/veterans in need. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm gonna show these guys out. I'm gonna have Ian come in here.
Yes, thank you.
Ian's gonna take my
It
spot.
was good meeting you,
And I
man.
think I saw Frank
Yeah.
Dema out
Richard,
there.
thank you so
All
much.
Yeah,
right.
thank you for guys for having me.
All right. You mind if I switch out
Yes,
here?
absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right.
I'd like to hear about Hillary's military experience.
Oh, would you? Oh, okay. All right. Well, we got plenty of time here. So, all right, Ian, have a seat, sir.
All right.
And Frank, right? Hey, nice to meet you. Have a seat here. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I'll let you guys take this. Thank you.
Hi there.
Go ahead.
I'm Hilary.
Hilary.
Hi, Hilary. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Frank, you have a very interesting story. First of all, I hear you're a killer hockey player.
I don't know about a killer hockey player, but I'm a hockey
You're
player.
great on
I'm a
great side.
hockey player nonetheless.
Oh, I was reading about you. I hear that you're amazing. I would love just to kind of share with everybody your backstory. How did you decide to be in the military? How did you end up there?
Ooh, that is a story. I was old, 33, when I went in the Army. I was
Really?
I was much older. I wanted to be a cop, and so I was a cop, and I wanted to work some narcotic stuff, to which I did. And then I really wanted to be more on the, I don't know what would be a good word for it, maybe more of the secret ops, right? I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be that James Bond kind of guy. And so I tested with a couple of very, very nice 3-letter agencies who said, hey, you did really, really good, but this isn't how we hire people. They got to have some experience. So fortunately enough, they said, hey, the Army has this great program as a 35 Lima, which is a counterintelligence special agent. I'm like, oh, I'm 33 years old. I'm a police officer. I have a career. My wife worked for American Airlines. It's not really what I want to do. I went home and talked to her, and she's like, I mean, if you have a dream and that's what you want to do, if it's going to be open a segue and allow you the opportunity to do this, why would you not try it? So I did. Went into basic training at 33. It was very interesting because everybody was 17 and 18 years old. I was old as a lot of their dads and their moms were. I was very glad that I did it, because as I did it older, I was a whole lot smarter, right? So I figured out very quickly, especially doing the job that I did before, I figured out very quickly that this is just more of a mind game, right? It's mind over matter. I could get through anything. And it was really much easier than I thought it would be. Spent 2 years enlisted, deployed to Afghanistan. I came in May of 2000. December of 2000. And when September 11th kicked off, we were in country. I was with the Special Forces unit. We were in country on the 4th of October. So maybe there was 35 or 40 Americans in country. Had a blast. I mean, literally, pun intended, right? But literally, it was unbelievable. I'd never been in. I mean, I was a cop in Fort Worth, so I had a little bit of a war zone sometimes, but nothing like this. I mean, the bombs were just beginning to drop right after we got there. So I mean, there was still smoke and fire when we got in there. I was hooked. But then I knew that I was a little too, most Army senior leaders, especially on the non-commissioned officer side, they have strong opinions, and I also had strong opinions, and I knew I was probably going to be in trouble. So I made a quick transition to be a warrant officer. So a warrant officer on the technical side as a counterintelligence person. Stayed in the Army for 22 years, and I just retired in May of 2001.
Now, 22 years. Let's talk the military side. That's a fast clip to make CW5. I mean, CW5 is already unicorn status in the branches, but 20 years to hit CW5 and be that accomplished.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So
that's a big deal.
So interesting problem to have, right? I'll tell you the problem that I had when I get there. But so at about the 2-year mark, I just talked to a CW5 that I knew that was in my unit, and I was like, what have I got to do to put in a packet? He's like, listen, if I were you with all of your civilian experience, just put in the packet now. Most people make the transition between the 10 and 12-year mark in the Army because you're a W-1 for 2 years, and then you're a W-2 for 4 years, and then you're a W-3 for 5 years. But it takes them to 20 as a W-3, which is a nice retirement. So at the 2-year mark, I make the switch. So at the 2-year mark, I'm a W-1. At the 4-year mark, I'm a W-2. So I pinned 4 at 13. Which meant I got my first look at 5 at 16 years time in service. So I get picked up for W5. Now I have a problem. So my problem is this. If you look at the Army pay chart, W5 doesn't start until 20 years time in service. So I say, oh no, am I going to have to get paid, even though I am a W5, am I only going to get paid for this until I hit 20?
Right.
Which, look, good problem to have, right? And so the Army said, no, we say that the minimum dollar amount you could make as a W5 is this amount. So at 16, or instead of getting paid as a W4 with 16, I was actually making a W5 at 20. She said the bad part is you're going to have to stay like that until you hit 20. And I'm like, what a terrible problem to have. So it was good. It was really good. And, you know, ironically enough, my son went in the military after college because he didn't want to pay for law school. And so he just finished warrant officer school. He's at the 5-year mark of his career. He's a 35 golf. So he's a geospatial 4-language kid. And so he's out there now. And he called me the other day and he said, hey, pretty impressive, right? Warrant officer at 5 years. I go, that's very impressive. 3 years later than I did it, but it's still impressive. You're moving right along, kid. But yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was.
He's got a lot to live up to.
He does. So it's
A little bit of name recognition for him.
Yeah, he's run into a couple people out there already. And he's like, and he sends me these rolling eye emojis. He's like, Dad, there's more people out here because he's at Fort Huachuca, which is the home of the Army Intel Center. So I spent a big chunk of my career as far as schooling goes out there. So he's like, everybody I run into is like, hey, that name, that's really familiar name. And he's like, yes, that's my dad. Yes, he is. No, I'm not him. And they're like, oh, well, he goes, but there are a lot of benefits that come with it as well. And I said, use your power wisely.
Right, exactly.
Use it wisely.
You know, Frank, you and I haven't known each other long. I'd say a little over a year. I've got to know you pretty well. Obviously, you've been in the real fight. Now you're fighting a different battle with a pretty rare, I would say. I've not heard of it often, cancer.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you go through on a basis with that, because I think that kind of ties into your strength and the military and kind of your drive. I found it interesting when you told me the story a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So there I was, Afghanistan, maybe my 5th or 6th time in 2012. I just was sick. I just could feel that. I mean, I was always a pneumonia kind of person after the first deployment. Burn pits, whatever caused it, I have no idea. But I was get pneumonia in the hospital once a year or twice a year, every year from 2002. The doctors couldn't really figure it out. So fast forward 2012, I'm actually in Herat at a house, a civilian house of a source. I'm about to do a recruitment. And I have this constant cough, and I just have this pain. Like, I just feel like somebody's stabbing me. And so the guy that I was talking to, the Afghan, he's like, don't worry about this. My brother's a doctor. I'm going to call him right up. I'm like, oh no, I'm not sure I'm that sick, but I just couldn't do it. I was just really, really sick. So I went back to Herat. Spanish hospital was set up there. The Italians had a big base there. And so I walked in there, and the very first thing when we deploy in all just native, just however the natives are, that's who you are. And so as I walk in here, the very first thing this nurse says to me is, do you speak English? And I'm like, yeah, I sure do. And she's like, wow, you do it with no accent. That's really good. Where did you learn it so well? I'm like, I don't know, probably the same public school system in the United States that you did. And she's like, really? That's amazing. So the doctor comes in, does a bunch of x-rays, a lot of blood coming up in the coughing. He's standing probably across the room in the corner from me, picks up the phone, calls the surgeon, and says, hey, I need you to come over here right away. And he must have asked him why. And he said, if I've ever seen lung cancer before, I see it right now. So I'm like, that was the first. He didn't say nothing to me before he said that. And so he's literally right there. So he walks back over, and I said, sir, I'm sitting right here, right? And he's like, well, yeah. And I go, you probably could have told me that before you told somebody else that. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, hey, listen, you got to toughen up a little bit. This is war. And I said, when did you get here? He had only been there for about a month. Never left the fob. Never been outside of the wire. Was only there for 60 days from Bethesda. Nonetheless, I had to go home. And so I was mad. I was 43. I was 44 years old. So I was mad, very mad. Go home, go to Lawrenceville, go through a bunch of treatment. I'm at Walter Reed for about 8 months. Luckily, my wife worked there as well at the time, so it worked out well. I got to see her every day. Everything worked out, went into remission. Everything was fine. 2012, 2015, let's do it again. Same lung, same side, same everything. Everything was good. 2019, let's try it one more time. Another lobe. So beat that. moved to Texas, retire. Right before I came to Texas, 2020, diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is cancer of the blood. Probably the tougher one than lung cancer because it can really never get fixed. So we do the treatments, we do everything now. We do a combination of IVIG, which is the intravenous immunoglobulin, because my immune system is just completely shot. So luckily it must be working because my wife got COVID about a month ago and we were in the same house and I didn't get sick at all. So something must be working well. When you change the dosages a lot, which is the hardest part for me. And so we go on we do every 3 weeks for 3 cycles, and then we go to every 2 weeks. And so yesterday was my day. So usually the day of, it's really kind of a hard day. And so my wife's only rule about playing hockey, which I try to do 5 times a week, is you can't play on maybe 6 times a week. You just can't play on the day you have treatment. I've done it. It's not.
It's rough, right?
It's not a pretty sight. And so the problem is, we had some pulmonary embolisms a while back that we didn't really realize. So now blood thinners. So every time you get hit with a hockey puck, it looks like had a fight. And but it is hard. And so success right now is that it doesn't get into the bones and turn into leukemia. So we have a bone marrow biopsy about once a quarter. Cross our fingers. So far the blood's good. So I guess that the transfusions and the treatment and everything that we're doing. And if I have to do that every 3 weeks so that I can live mostly a normal life and still play hockey.
And how are you feeling?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its days, but like anybody will tell you, I'm probably the most positive person that you'll ever run into. I can
feel it, right? Like
Yeah,
you can just feel
nonstop.
it coming straight from you, Frank. You
I mean,
are so positive.
I can have treatment on Thursday and play. Actually, we did play in a tournament where I played 2 games Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. But you would never know it. Sometimes I feel it. And I know that luckily for me, I have a pretty good wife. How she's managed our medical schedule and everything through all of this, I have no idea. But she absolutely is amazing. And so there'll be times where she'll be like, okay, now you got to go home. Now you got to sleep now. But I'm just I don't know if you've ever heard the commercial about a body in motion stays in motion. But my biggest fear, and one of the things that my oncologist has said to me was, I don't know how you're still going. I don't know how you're not at home on oxygen. I don't know how you keep doing this, but whatever you're doing. And then to top it all off, I can't do cardio the same way normal people can, right? I can't go out there and run. I can't go to the gym like you and pick up, lift pickup trucks and things like that. But I got into cycling, and I really, really like it. And so I try to ride between 60 and 80 miles a week. And my goal 2 years ago when I first started was to ride a century ride. I wanted to ride 100 miles. And so I worked up to it. And last December, I finally rode in a century ride and I rode 100 miles. And when I finished, I said, why would anybody that can drive ride their bike 100 miles? It's insanely too far. Yeah.
That's incredible, though.
So it was good.
That is amazing. Well, you're such a testament to never give up. That this too shall pass. Like so many things in life are momentary.
Yeah.
And I love your positive attitude. What's something that you remember about when you came home from your last deployment? What were you kind of thinking and feeling then?
I was so mad, like angry mad. I was sick. I wasn't feeling well, but I think I was super angry. I remember calling my wife. And so I didn't tell anybody till I got home. So I called my wife from Afghanistan and said, because I actually had 2 hernias and I had to have my gallbladder removed for some big gallstones that were there, but they couldn't do the surgery till I got back home. So I'm like, hey, listen, I've got to come home. They're going to do surgery on gallbladder. She's like, why aren't they just bringing you to launch school, having the surgery, and then sending you back to Afghanistan? They do that with a lot of people. And I'm like, you're not smarter than me. Don't worry about it. I don't know why they're not doing it. They're just not doing it. I mean, maybe it's time for me to, because usually we did 4 to 5 month rotations anyway. So mad, very, very mad. And so when I got home, I was like, how am I supposed to tell anybody? How am I supposed to? So the kids were, I think our son was a senior, our daughter was a sophomore. So we went out to dinner at a public restaurant. And I just said, hey, look, this is what's going to happen. This is where we're going. This is what's going on. And there was dead silence. And my daughter, who was a freshman, I guess, maybe a sophomore at the time, she said, Dad, does the cancer hurt? And everybody kind of cracked up laughing. So our family has always been deal with funny, deal with laughter. If you can't laugh about it, then it's probably not worth it. So after that, we just kind of made a plan and stuck to the plan. And then we slowly worked through it. But that original one, when I first came home, yeah, just downright mad. Because you're not supposed to have lung cancer at 45 years old.
Right.
You're supposed to talk to your 45-year-old friends about their dad and their grandpas that have lung cancer and say, oh, I'm really sorry, but they're in their 90s, so it's been a really good run.
Right.
Not, you're 45, how are you going to deal with this? And then, oh, by the way, now that everybody has Google and smartphones and all that, just go ahead and Google to see what life expectancy is and what the success rate is. It's not very good. It's one of the worst. So all of that, and then I'm just like, I still had a lot of things that I wanted to do, right?
Right. It's pretty incredible, though, what you've done, what you accomplished in such a short period of time, and the positivity. I can only imagine. I'm sure there are other veterans who love spending time with you and being around you because you have such a cheerful, happy perspective and personality. And by the way, I haven't said this in a little bit. If you want to donate to help our veterans today, we would greatly appreciate it. You can go to givesendgo.com/veteransinneed. So givesendgo.com/veteransinneed. And we're so grateful that you're here sharing your story today. What advice, and I asked this in the last hour, what advice would you give to those of us who might know, and I would love to know this from both of you actually, what advice would you give to those of us who know someone who might be transitioning out of the military and into civilian life? Because I know that's not an easy transition for most people. When you go from a very structured lifestyle to all of a sudden going back to something that you haven't experienced in a while, especially if you've been in for 22 years or whatever it is. So what advice would you give us to kind of help people who are making that transition?
I literally just made a transition. I retired from the Army in May 1st of 2021. And then I transitioned to being a senior consultant with Deloitte 3 days later. I'd already had the job set up and everything like that. For me, it's a whole different story because my job in the military was very much civilian-like, right? So I had a boss, kind of, sort of, but we were always in civilian clothes. We always had a beard. When we always had rental cars. We always stayed in hotels. We stayed in houses. So for me coming into the military later in life, I'm going to use the expression, I didn't so much drink all the Kool-Aid, because for me, it was more of a career and a stepping stone. And this is really what I wanted to do. And I always said I would stay as long as till it wasn't fun anymore. When I couldn't get up every day and go to work and laugh, then I wouldn't go to work anymore. But I work with a lot of now. So I have a lot of people that are transitioning, that are coming to Deloitte, and Deloitte seems to shift them all over to me. And so as I talk to these guys, I'm like, okay, how are you preparing for this? So for some reason in the Army, everything is super structured. They tell you when to get up. They tell you when to go to bed. They tell you when to eat. They tell you when to be. They have 3 formations a day. They tell you accountability. It's pretty structured, no matter what your job is. Some a little bit less, some a little bit more. So I know a bunch of colonels that have come to work after retirement that were very structured that don't make it in Deloitte. Because especially in the consulting world, it's you go out and you find some jobs and you do your job and you don't really have a schedule and you don't really have a boss and you just try to make some money and that's how it works. But people that need structure, you have to really have a plan. And so the transition plan, what the Army does right now, the Army's transition program didn't exist when I got out. And being in the type of unit that I was in my whole career, I literally, when I retired, I shook my boss's hand. I got on into my vehicle and I drove to Texas. No ceremony, no award, no nothing like that. I had a Legion of Merit that was sent to me in the mail a couple months later, but I knew what I was getting into. But some of these kids that are transitioning, even at the 4, 6, 8, 10-year mark, that have had that, they have to understand that they should take that experience that they had and build on it, because it's a great building block. There's a reason people want to hire them, because they're structured, because they know that they've successfully completed something, they've started and completed something, and they've been very successful, and they have an honorable discharge. And they did what 5% of Americans do, and they volunteered and raised their hand and said, hey, I want to defend this country. good times or bad. I think it's like 5% is the number. So automatically it puts them in a different group of people that get looked at differently. The other thing I would say is take advantage of these programs that are out there for transitioning soldiers. I happened to hear about one tonight that I saw on Facebook that the Stars are having 1 hour before the game tonight. They're having a whole job satisfaction, job type of thing for them to be able to go and kind of look at some different job fairs. So look at some of those, look at them opportunities. I think that's what they need to do.
Ian, what about you? Do you have some advice you could give to those of us who I know someone who's making that transition?
You know, I like Frank was a little bit older when I came in. I was 25, not 33, but 25, and I had a grad degree and went to school overseas. So that's a little bit different as well. You know, build off of one, have a plan. You can't get out and not have a plan because unfortunately the systems still aren't in place to help individuals transition out. I mean, I do some consulting a little bit on the side as a businessman with people who are generals and colonels that they're scared to death. They're fighter pilots, yet they're scared to death of what happens next because they were academy graduates. They were straight in. I mean, they're equally like the kid who went in at 17 and 18 and their only life experience is the military. You know, the way I lay it out to them, and it's kind of blunt and it's a little bit abrasive, but you have to take the experience that you gained and the wisdom that you learned, but you have to check your ego at the door and understand that people appreciate what you did, but you also have to kind of grunt softly and carry a big stick. It's what you show them on the civilian side that you can do, not what you did while you were in. And I've hired people who have really struggled with so much so. I hate to say this, that I had an individual employee once that I had to counsel, and then when I got to the bottom of it, he couldn't figure out whether to wear khaki pants or blue pants because he had been told every day of his life what he was to wear. And you know, on the outside, for people who don't understand that, that's, you know, what do you mean you don't know what to wear? And you have to have an understanding on both sides. You know, coming out of the military, you have to understand it's a different lower level of kind of regulation and stuff like that. And that's when you have to take that discipline and turn it into the drive to succeed on the outside. And it's not going to be given on the outside. Right. It's something, you know, you have to work for it in the military, but it's not by time, it's not by testing. It's by what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
You know, a question I wanted, since we're here raising money for veterans and organizations like One Tribe and Mighty Oaks, for people who don't really know, obviously the big catchphrase for the last several years has been 22 veterans, we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide. What do you feel is the most important thing to get out there and for people to understand and to know about these organizations and what they do for people?
So look, I think suicide in the military with veterans and amongst active duty is, look, we see it every day amongst all these different warrior organizations, right? That they seem to lose people constantly. If you're someone that's struggling, so the problem that a lot of people that struggle, at least that we've seen, is people are very proud. They don't want to ask for help. The other thing, and to kind of go along with the last part that you said, was you can't judge anybody by this. Because if you saw this walking down the street, you wouldn't think anything about it, nor would you have any idea of what my story is. And sometimes, right, especially let's look at PTSD now. It probably plays a big part of this whole suicide thing. But I can't tell what's going on inside of you. I can see that you're very smiley, that you're very happy, that you're great to be here, but I have no idea that maybe you have a terrible relationship going on at home, or your spouse lost their job, or you're just dealing with, right? So we have a lot of emotional things that have happened. We had so many young people that went to war. We had so many things that happened. So I think if you're the person suffering, I think you really got to ask for help. As hard as it is, just raise your hand, just find that one person. More importantly, in organizations like the Warriors and different things that we're part of, you have to look for these signs, right? I spent the whole career reading people. It's what I did for a living. So I have to look and go, I see a Facebook post by Ian and I go, that's really weird compared to his other posts. Why don't I just reach out to them? Not in a group.
Mhm.
People don't like groups. People don't like to share their news like that. So I think we have to be very cognizant of each other. We have to be each other's keepers. We have to look for those telltale signs. We have to listen to some of those key words.
Right.
If you're always happy, 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 and now you're not, there's a reason why you're not. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something. But I think if we don't ask, or we also have this problem, I don't really like to get involved in other people's personal business. But sometimes you have to.
Mhm.
If I've only known you for 1 year and that's all that I've known you, then if I think you have a better relationship with, let's say, Keith, then I should call Keith and go, hey, Keith, I think something's wrong going on with Ian. Can you reach out to him? Hey, Ryan Young. Hey, some of these other people. But we need to really watch for each other.
Right.
Whatever organization you're in, whether you're in the military, whether you're not in the military, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's somebody else you play hockey with. But if we can't recognize when something's wrong, then if we don't want to get involved, then we're not very good people.
Right.
Because that's, and for those that are suffering, I think they just have to look at it and say, every day I look at it and go, man, one, I wake up, I can take a breath. I'm very thankful.
Mhm.
But I have been much worse than I am now. So I always flash back. When I don't feel very good, I always flash back to there I am in the hospital with a whole bunch of tubes in me. And I go, I'm not there. So let's keep on going. There has to be something within you to make you go, what's the reason? And sometimes it's just a conversation. Ian, what's your reason to be here? I got a baby. I want to see the baby get to be 4 years old and 5 years old. And I got a wife and I got this. And I want to go camping and I haven't been. All sometimes you need to do to talk to these people is to get them to start talking about that. And then the light comes on. But if they don't have that outlet, that's where we get in trouble.
And this hits close to home too. Frank and the other gentleman that we're going to speak to is we just lost one of our own 6 weeks ago.
Huh.
So this is really on the forefront of our minds because it just happened in real time to us. And with the individual, you didn't know. He showed some signs to some individuals, but if you'd have seen him and talked to him, you would have thought that he was the most happy, jovial individual, and we lost him. And this was
It's a great example.
Yeah, it was very close.
But when you start to look at the social media aspect of it, now let's start to look at everybody that's responding. And now, because I'm that guy, and now you start to read what they're writing. Oh my God, I saw him doing this. I talked to him about doing this.
Right.
Now you have more than one person. Now you have multiple people and you're going, did anybody think of raising a flag? Did anybody think of, because you could hear it from your wife. I can hear it from my wife. But if I hear it from an outsider, I'm like, oh man, sometimes my wife just wants to pick on me. That's what I think. But if you hear it from a complete stranger or somebody that doesn't know you very well and they're picking up on it, sometimes it's for you to be able to say, well, I really do have a problem. But when you look at it, there was probably some signs that, and we've had other people that have had that same situation. They haven't ultimately ended up deceased, but we've had some people that we've recognized very successfully and said, hey, maybe you should take a look in the mirror and
Right.
try to fix this. And they have. So, but I think it's on everybody. I think everybody has to just look out for each other.
Right.
And it's really, it's understanding that you have the personal relationships and the non-personal relationships that somebody can say, hey, we think there may be an issue.
Mhm.
But they also need to know that there's lots of, on the veteran side, that there's lots of organizations that are there for us to help. And for those that are donating and those that are listening, it's look out, find one of those organizations. It could be time, it could be money, it could be a myriad of different things that you can step in and be part of that process to help.
Well, and to your point, you're bringing up social media and kind of keeping an eye on everyone's posts and just kind of checking in. It's also sharing information like this for organizations like Mighty Oaks or One Tribe. Find something that they've posted that's helpful or inspirational and post that on your social media, even though you might not need it or you might not even know anybody that needs it, but somebody that you're friends with might see it and go, oh, I know someone who would benefit from this. I feel like awareness is such a big thing because even if maybe you don't have the money to help today, but you can do a social media post, that can be just as effective, or it could reach someone who does want to donate. So I feel like just
Yeah.
even sharing in little small ways can make such a big difference.
That's a great point, because I think you never realize how big your network is.
Mm-hmm.
Your network is only as big as the people within your network that continue to share it.
Right.
So you have no idea what those parameters are. You might only have 20 friends, but if those 20 friends each have 20 friends who have 20 friends, do the math.
Right. It just
Yeah.
multiplies.
It
So
does.
yes, if you want to help, if you have a donation that you'd like to give today, you can go to givesendgo.com/veteransinneed. And then again, last hour we talked to the Mighty Oaks Foundation and we talked to One Tribe Foundation. So you can look them up and read about the services that they offer for veterans for free, which is just incredible. And their families and first responders and our law enforcement. And I want to encourage everybody to continue to honor those people, because we are so grateful for your service and what you've done. And I asked this the last hour too, and I would be interested to know what you both have to say about it. But on a day like Veterans Day, what do you like to hear, or how can we show our appreciation? What means the most to you?
Nice.
I'll let you lead off on that one, Frank.
Look, I think I look at this a little bit differently. I thank people all the time for their service. I get a little weird when people thank me for my service.
So I've been
I-
hearing that from a
I-
lot of veterans.
That's
don't-
exactly the position I'm in.
Okay.
I hear people say, where are the places that are giving out free meals? Where are the I think that's awesome. I think if that's what you want to do, you more than deserve it. You probably should have free meal every day. For me, I loved everything that I did. I told you, when I said it wasn't going to be fun anymore, I wasn't going to do it. So I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. I did it and raised my hand, and it was complete free will. And so from a recognition standpoint, I've never really needed any. I thank people all the time for their service. Whenever anybody thanks me, you'll be in the airport or whatever, and they'll see something and someone will say, well, thank you for your service. And I'm like, it was totally my pleasure. It literally was my pleasure and my honor to do it. So for me, this day is more about all of the brothers and sisters that served. I never look at it internally.
So let me ask you this, because I do the same thing. Anytime I see that someone has served, or they've got, like a hat on that shows what branch of the military they served in, I'll tell them, thank you for your service. But the reaction I get is typically what you're both saying, where, they either feel awkward about it, or, they'll just say, oh, you're welcome, and not necessarily engage. So is the better thing to do to say, thank you for choosing to serve, and maybe ask them more questions if time allows, like ask them what branch did you serve in, or why did you decide to join the military? Is there something that kind of opens the door that makes things?
I think it's on the interaction of the individual, right? It's as you're sitting down with somebody, the Gulf War guys, which fortunately we've got Jamie who's coming up next, who actually served in the first Gulf War. It's their time of service can be a little bit different. And a lot of it's the way people were treated when they came home.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the World War II guys and the Korean guys, and they're very put together. They got the red carpet rolled out for them.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, Vietnam and our first Gulf War guys were just pushed to the wayside.
Yes.
And some rights or some wrongs were righted with the Iraq and the Afghanistan war and the global war on terrorism. But there's still a long way to go. And it's really knowing the generational people that you're talking to
Mm-hmm.
and how they react to what you say. And some people will be very open and other people will just shut it down immediately.
Right.
And to me, it's just based on,
Gotcha.
how they react.
The World War II guys, I'm not lying. Every time I see one of the hats, especially if they don't look like they're quite old enough, because some of them aged really, really well. I'm always like, did your dad know you're wearing his hat? And you'll be like, boy, let me tell you. So it's a really nice opening to a conversation. But I just think you're right. If you kind of read the room, first of all, I would have nothing that said Gulf War, Army, or military like that. So other than being a veteran, but if you see somebody and they're wearing a hat, or you see somebody doing it, and if you're just like, thank you for everything that you did, a lot of times they'll be like, no problem. A lot of people I hear as well when somebody says that is, thank you for noticing, right? So that's kind of, I think a lot of it is going to be on their response,
Right.
and that's going to kind of be based on the segue on the way in. Sometimes it's just nice to be, sometimes I don't say anything. I was at the airport a couple of weeks ago. I do a lot of business in DC, and there was an old guy standing behind me in a World War II hat, and I just gave the lady my credit card and I said, whatever he's going to eat, just let me get it. Didn't say another word. I didn't do anything. And so when he ordered, she just said, no, I'm taking care of it. And he was like, thank you guys. So him not knowing anything, thinking maybe the business and it was a great establishment, but for me that was more than enough.
That's great. It's good. It's helpful advice. I love that there's lots of different ways we can honor our veterans and also help those who are struggling. So again, givesendgo.com/veterans in need if you'd like to make a donation. We really appreciate it. Frank, thank you so much
Thanks
for
for having
sharing
me.
your story.
Appreciate it.
This was awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
A lot of fun.
Let's see you on the ice.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great to meet
See
you.
you too.
All right, so if you're just now joining us, Keith is coming back to join, I think, here in just a second.
Yeah, I know you
but-
got to take off, right?
But once again,
Do not let her leave without telling her
oh,
military
my story.
experience.
Okay, well, very briefly.
Okay.
I had a goal of trying to date someone from every branch of the armed services, but I fell short. I did not ever find a
That was your life goal.
I did not find a Marine to date,
Oh
or
my
that
gosh.
would date me. I'll put it that way. So,
Really?
but I managed Army, Navy, and Air Force. So I didn't get Coast Guard. I couldn't work that in there. I ran short
Well,
on
it's
time
never
there,
too late.
But
It's
never
never
too
too
late.
late.
My husband might question that. But no, it was a wonderful goal because I learned a lot about our military. So I just appreciate.
It was a worthy goal.
It was a
You
worthy
know?
goal. So I
Alright.
want to thank all of the veterans I dated today as well. Thank you for all the good times.
Hilary Kennedy, HilaryKennedy.com. Don't forget it's 1L when you go to her website.
Not to be confused with Hillary Clinton.
That's right. So thank you for making time today.
Yes,
I really appreciate
had
it.
so much fun.
Yeah,
This
be
was-
careful out there. Slick
The
roads
rain
and
is
stuff.
kind of tough. But thank you everyone who tuned in today
All right.
too.
Thank you very much.
Great
And
weekend.
now we're gonna have Ian slide back in here. Okay. And for those of you who are just joining us, please donate if you can. It's givesendgo.com/veterans in need. Every dollar helps. And so thank you so much for considering helping us out with that today. And we are giving half the money to Mighty Oaks Foundation. Half the money is going to One Tribe Foundation. And that's it, 100%. Okay, so I'm going to let you, Mr. Ian, explain. We have 3 new guests here who I just know are thrilled to be joining us on Veterans Day.
I was thrilled until Ian sat down in front of it.
I mean,
He does have pants on, though. He
I do have pants on, and we're not in the locker room.
And clothing is optional.
Okay. So introduce us, yeah.
So, it's nice to be a part of one of these organizations. Keith actually introduced us to One Tribe just this last segment with Frank. We were discussing, we lost one of our own just a few weeks back. And it's how I learned about One Tribe through Keith. Keith is actually our president for the Dallas Warriors.
Okay.
And
that's the Dallas Warriors hockey.
Hockey,
Okay.
which is an outreach program for healing through hockey, basically. And to know that these organizations are out there and how to utilize them, I had no idea about One Tribe. I've been here for 2.5 years. Had no idea until this situation came across. Now, just to do brief introductions, we have Jimmy Bonetto, who was a former Marine, served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and he's such an old head. He served in the first Gulf War. He's a retired Texas State Police officer, retired Marine, and he's now his own business in insurance.
All right, man.
We have
Thank you.
Tim Kellner, 21 years, retired Army sniper.
Army, yep.
Tim has been up and down the map, it looks like, in his career. I'll let him get a little bit more into that. I was reading his bio and I was like, good Lord. And Keith was a combat medic, so in the Army. So we've got a lot of different and diverse viewpoints.
I love it.
From counterintelligence and counterterrorism, and Frank and Jamie was intelligence, infantry, medic, me being the only Air Force guy.
There's no intelligence in infantry, is what he's getting.
I thought we were just doing military today.
So Yeah.
Here we go.
Here we
Here we
go.
go.
Here we go. So, when I reached out to these guys, I wanted a diverse spectrum on what people had seen and what people had done, and people who were really in touch with the use and how these different organizations work. Because part of the problem is, everybody's like, oh, I want to give. One, they don't know how to give. They don't know who to give to.
Right.
Because there's 1,000,001 organizations out there. And then on our side of the fence, from the veteran side, it's how do we utilize this and get the word out and the education out that there's resources, there's people you can go to.
Arguably, the hardest thing is getting the veteran to want to get the resource. That's the hard part.
And Jamie, you and I were just talking. This is probably a great segue. Tell us about your experience with, obviously, with us and the Dallas Warriors and what it did for you. And it'll give a good segue into the mind on how these organizations work and the positive impact on veterans.
So I retired in 2013. And when I retired, I told my wife that I wanted 10 acres of land somewhere out in the country where I can't see my neighbors and they can't see me. Isolation, that's what I wanted. I've got goats and chickens for my outer perimeter to make noise. The noise creates my dogs to go, get and make noise to wake me up. It's the way it's set up. I mean, that's how I was living. And then I don't even know how I heard of the Dallas Warriors. I think it was through, I can't remember his name. I can't remember for sure. But I reached out. I've never put skates on in my life. I was 50 years old, and I went out there and absolutely enjoyed it. Just being around the other veterans, not really hitting each other, but pushing each other around and falling down at good times.
We don't want to break here.
I fell in love with it. It was my escape to get out of the house and start socializing again. So it's definitely been a big deal for me.
Yeah.
So
that's excellent, man.
And tell us a little bit about your service. Obviously, I just gave a brief overview. You've got a Purple Heart. Can you tell us a little bit about the action that led to your Purple Heart?
So I was with the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines in Ramadi in 2004. And I have to throw it out there before I talk about mine. Our unit had over 285 wounded and over 30 killed, the most any American battalions had since Vietnam. So it was a rough 7.5, 8 months too. It was a short deployment and still overwhelming. It was we were set up. One of the things I did as intel is I created I think it's being used now more often, but I created what's called a pickup site or a joint site where we had medics with us, we had intelligence with us, and some security. And there was an overwhelming amount of prisoners being caught that was taking too much time and taking the infantry out of the game by having them drive to get assistance or drive and bring them back to a facility where we had to, vet them and see what's going on, see who they were and document. So it was basically a mobile setup is what I initiated. And we would go out during the battles and stuff, and we would set up somewhere and be that pickup point.
Puck centers?
I don't know what they call them now.
Prisoner under control center?
Is it? Yeah, with something we started in 2004. And we were out there setting up, and we got ambushed with 8 120 millimeter mortars that all hit within a 50-meter range. And the kill radius for one of those is 50 meters. As soon as they started hitting with that, we had small arms fire, started the ambush. And that's, I think 9 of us got hit with just mortars at that initial push or the initial hit. I just took some strap from the back of the leg. I got lucky. But yeah, that was in August of 2004.
Man. And when you came back here, what was the biggest adjustment for you?
One of the biggest things I dealt with is both times or all 5 deployments, the combats that I did, I was temporarily assigned to a different unit. So I went to that combat zone with a different unit, and I came back, I was sent back to my original unit. So I had no follow-up and no communication with anybody that I was actually serving with. And the units I was with never deployed. So the isolation was hard because I had no one to reach out and talk to. So that was tough. And then when I retired, again, I just wanted to be isolated. I didn't want to socialize. And I was just telling Tim earlier, I was watching a movie with my wife. I can't remember what it was, but it was just about 3 years ago. It was military, talking about, some guys had PTSD and stuff. And I looked at my wife and said, aren't you glad I didn't suffer from any of that? And frankly, she looked at me and said that F you don't. And that was my first time realizing that I was going through that. I had short-term memory loss. I had anger issues. I had sleep issues. I mean, it's stuff I was living with and just dealt with it.
Right.
It wasn't until she pointed it out, and that's when I knew it's time to get help. I mean, so.
Well, Tim, we kind of talked earlier out in the hallway there. I know you're kind of not looking forward to this part of your afternoon.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you to talk about yourself regardless. Tell us your story, man.
Well, it's 21 years worth, so I'm going to have to abbreviate some.
Understood.
Came in 96. Did not plan to, but I made some bad life choices. So I needed a job with some health care and some other things going on.
So Army.
Yeah, Army. Yeah.
You continue on that bad choice.
Yeah.
Oh, he set him up.
There's worse choices. Much worse. At least I have to pick my job.
Oh, no.
At least I knew I was dumb. I didn't have to have somebody tell me I was dumb. We're going to pick your job for you. No, I know I'm dumb. Thanks. So, I joined the Army, picked a contract that had me falling out of planes because, again, I'm dumb. And
There's no jump. It's all fall.
It is. They say jump, but that's a lie. It's a straight lie.
Yeah, I'm going to have you guys come closer here. Just, I want to make sure that everybody can hear you and your stories here, gentlemen.
But
okay.
Ended up at 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg and spent some time there. Went to Korea, came back to 82nd, ended up deploying. I was pretty decent at what I was doing. Ended up in a sniper section. Didn't always work with people I liked. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
So do we now.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to get loaned out. I could use a different word, but loaned out to the cool kids like Frank. Guys, I didn't know Frank, but there's other units out there that, let's be honest, the cool kids like, Green Berets, Delta Force, stuff like that. They're great at what they do, but they don't like to go lay out in places for like 3 days, 6 days, or 9 days straight when it's 130 degrees. They'd rather be working out, eating steak, and drinking Heineken.
And volleyball.
Well, some of them, but
A lot of sand, right?
yeah. So they'll come down to conventional units and like, hey, can we borrow your scouts and snipers? And they'll let us go out there. And if you have a pretty good attitude, don't mind putting in some work, don't complain all the time, they'll keep asking for you. Good part is when the mission's over, you get a steak and a Heineken while everybody else is eating MREs. So I will work my ass off. But I worked for them quite a bit, got treated right. Had a not so good mission. I know you're going to go into the Purple Heart stuff here somewhere, right?
Oh, I don't have it here.
Okay.
Oh, man. You know what? I'll find it, though.
No, that's good.
It's a great segue.
Great segue. I got blown up coming back from a mission after working with them. I'd helped them get a high value target. So there was some stuff on their head, not mine. But
So we may have heard about you on the news and not known it.
I don't know you.
Like I'm saying, a high value target was taken out today.
I don't know.
So which theater was this in, Tim?
03.
Okay, so in Iraq. Or
Yep. Iraq 03. I kept going back to Iraq. I went to the same fob twice.
Wow.
I ran to an Iraqi soldier when I redeployed in 05 that recognized me. He's like, oh, Mr. Friend. I'm like, no, you're not my fucking friend. No. Now this is the place I got blown up. No. But coming back, end up getting hit. One thing they do really well there is patternize you because, they pray 5 times a day. Everything in their life is a pattern. So when conventional units don't listen to the SF units about being on patterns, and we keep doing the same rotations of stuff like security and stuff like that, end up getting hit. My Humvee did. Humvee got flipped. The front vehicle looked back because it's at night, saw there's a vehicle behind him. Cool. Rear vehicle looked forward, saw there's a vehicle in front of him. Cool. And took off. My vehicle's down over in the fucking farm field. Sorry, I cuss a lot.
Yeah. Oh, good, man. Tell your story.
I woke up like, hey, and I got a Humvee across my lap. The other sniper that was with me was underneath the bed of the truck. Not a scratch, not a dent, not a ding, not even a bruise. I'm a little bitter.
Yeah, I bet. I can understand this.
All our weapons are just trashed. Like they're either buried or broken. He crawls out, comes over to me like, "Hey, Sergeant Keller, are you okay?" No, man. No, I'm really not okay. This is the calmest I've ever been in my life. Like I was the dude from Big Lebowski, just chill. So he digs me out, pulls me up the hill, and I'm sitting there, and first thing I do is check my junk. I'm like, okay, that's attached.
Absolutely.
We're good. Life goes on.
Okay, can we just stop for just a second here?
It's all
Can we,
perspective.
let's be honest for a second. When this happens and you suffer an attack, I mean, tell me, that's got to be the first thing you check, right, guys?
Well, once I could get to it, because I had to dig me
Oh,
out. I got a Humvee across my lap. I'm like,
Oh,
this
gosh.
arm's not moving. My neck hurts. I'm like,
Oh.
Yeah, I got knocked out from a foot patrol IED. And it's odd how when you wake up, it's, you do your checks.
Yeah,
you're
I
like,
bet.
okay, yeah.
Right. Oh.
check your equipment.
How
Roger
long?
that.
How long were you trapped before you could take inventory there?
It wasn't very long. He
Okay.
dug me out pretty quick.
That's
I mean,
good.
it's soft dirt. They buried the ID pretty deep underneath the road, so it more flipped the Humvee than anything. I took some shrapnel to the back legs and through my arm and stuff, but it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
He got me up the hill. He's freaked out. I'm just chill because all you can control is yourself. Like there's no reason to freak out now. I can't do anything. I can't move anything from the waist down. This arm's not working. I mean, I can move my hand a little bit. My neck hurts. Obviously, everything through here hurts. And I'm like, hey, chill out. Just run back to the fob. Scream like a little girl when you get there. Let them know who you are so they don't shoot you because this is nighttime and you don't have any nods or weapon or anything. And get somebody to come back with you, please. Thanks. And he goes back. And by that time, the convoy gets back to the fob because they're only about a mile away. And they realize, hey, we're missing somebody. Cool. I can't tell you the next part because I don't remember the next part. Somewhere in between them getting to the fob and realizing I'm not there and him getting there and them coming back, I passed. So
That's out.
no, I passed.
Oh, did you really?
They had to restart me.
Oh,
like
wow.
whatever they do to fucking bring me back to life, they had to bring me back to life.
Whose fault was that?
Mine. I was lazy that day. I quit. They brought me back, and the only thing I will blame the medic for is he was out of morphine. So when he did bring me back, and I had to ride in the FLA, the
That's why we
little
carried our
ambulance. Yeah,
What an
medic,
a-hole.
medic,
What an a-hole.
medic.
Just because I had it didn't mean I shared.
I know.
Our corpsman gave us our own carry.
So yeah, I got the ride out of there, and I ended up with one break to my hip, 2 to my pelvis, 8 breaks to my lower back. My ribs were shattered. My left shoulder blade was broken in 3 places. Ruptured spleen, torn kidney, 2 breaks to my neck, and of course I passed for a little bit. I'm sure there was some brain trauma, but I'm pretty sure I was messed up anyway.
That's the time where he was allowed to go to the Air Force then.
Oh, I see.
I wish I would have went to the Air Force. I wasn't that smart. It took me a year to learn how to walk again.
That's what I want to ask you.
Another 6 months to run again. And almost exactly to the day, 2 years later, I was back in Iraq running sniper operations as a sniper section leader.
What? So
With an attitude problem. I'm just going to throw that in there with a serious attitude problem.
now, obviously, the trauma that most people who go through that amount of trauma, and so 96 to 03, that's 7 years from the time you went into the time you were deployed and wounded.
We get some peacekeeping missions in there. The Clinton era.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're going to Haiti. It's a peacekeeping mission. Right.
What was your mindset? Because as we all know, those of us sitting around the table, most guys who've gone through that level of trauma, one, they've either been boarded out almost immediately, or 2, they've just checked out. What was your mindset? Because that's one of the important things here, to continue on with the Army and to go forward, because that's not something that's easy. Obviously, it's not an easy recovery, but it's not something to jump back into either.
And nobody would have blamed it
No.
for
Not
calling
at all.
it and just
Everybody-
being done. I mean,
I have never been good at anything I do. I have no natural talent. I really don't.
You know?
No, I will outwork almost anybody I come across, though. I was not great at shooting. I brought bad habits into the military with me, and they had to teach me everything from scratch. I'm good at learning. Physical ability, I was not athletic. I'm still not athletic, but I will.
That's why you're a goalie.
I also skate out, but if you see me skate, it's horrible. I look like Howard the Duck out there, like waddling.
I figured the brain issues that he mentioned was why he's a goalie.
Yeah, that probably is true because I am not scared of the puck at all, and I make saves off the mask all the time.
Nice.
Yeah,
For
so
you, man.
I maybe challenged.
So really, you found your calling.
I just don't quit.
And, well, that's what I mean. Your drive, and it was kind of your calling. You're good at what you did, but you outworked everybody at what you did. And
Mentally and physically, like I would annoy you if it came down to planning something. I have a pace plan for every aspect of everything. My kid growing up, if she wanted to go to a friend's house, she had to have primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency plan for getting to their friend's house. I needed duration. I need to know what they're eating for dinner, if they're going out to dinner, or if she's eating at the house, how much money she needed to have if they're going out to dinner.
It sounds like I should have been in the military.
I needed a pace plan for how she's getting home. That includes if she's going to school with them the next day, if she's taking the bus, if she's walking. Oh yeah, it was bad.
I can't stand it when my kid says, "I don't know."
Oh, that's
then
you're not going.
To tell me because I need to know where you are.
That's a simple answer. You're not going.
You're gonna sit down. We're gonna figure it out.
We're gonna write it out. Yeah.
She got good at it.
That's good. That's good.
So I may have taken a few things too far. Just
But 21 years, that you served 14 years after.
Yep. They tried to put me out once. I had to do a continuation of active duty packet to stay in, which I got a bunch of like generals and colonels and stuff to give me letters of recommendation to stay in. And I got stuck at JRTC, which is a training unit.
Mm-hmm.
So when units want to deploy, they come in and we evaluate them. So I was going out with the scouts and the snipers, and then figuring out what they're doing right, figuring out what they're doing wrong, and then train them how to do it right. And I stayed in that job for a few years. I moved to the live fire division of that and would take it through the live fires to help them get better at what they did. So I had to find a job that would keep me.
Yeah. But that's half the battle, as we all know, especially those of us who deployed in the early days. There was no SOP or no rule book for what we did or what we had to do. And part of the problem, I always used to think, was we don't train for what we see or what we're going to see. We just train to train. And, having somebody like you who had real world experience and real world trauma and being able to teach people that is a level that most of us didn't get. And there was no way we could have gotten it.
I didn't want to share it with you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want anybody to get blown up and like, hey, let's do this.
Well, no, exactly. But carrying that experience on, especially at a place like, JRTC and things like that, and being able to tell these people, especially the first timers, you able to relay that on to them. Hey, this is
It's like when you tell your kids, you got to tell me where you're going because you could be lying dead in a ditch somewhere. It's a common phrase. You say something like that to a new guy coming in the military in combat, like, oh, you're overreacting. No, it's when we say things, it's because we've seen it or it's happened, and it can be that bad, that quick. And then obviously they learn that it can be that bad and that quick. So I don't want to miss out on Keith back there.
I know.
Yeah. Keith Wellman.
Hi.
That's medics are the
I'm just enjoying the stories.
Right.
I want to know how much morphine you carried. That's what I want to know.
I had enough.
You would have never left someone.
I had enough. No, I was extremely fortunate. I served 6 years in the military. I joined in 2004, so I was going through basic. All of my drill sergeants had deployments under their belts. And so my training from the beginning was preparation for combat. And so I was extremely fortunate. I was attached to the 172nd Stryker Brigade. We were one of the first units to get extended as the extensions started happening.
I remember you guys.
And it's because our strikers were beasts. I mean, we could take IEDs and way better than a Humvee. And then they created MRAPs based on our strikers. so they could have smaller vehicles. But I was extremely fortunate in that the unit I was with, as we deployed, we went out to Western Iraq. We went into Rawa. Basically, we were right there on the Syrian border. I've actually pissed on Syria. Small note. Small note. And our whole mission while we were in Western Iraq was basically uncovering these caches, because what they would do is from Syria, they would run weapons into Iraq, and they would hide equipment and weapons all along the routes so that people could just come in, pick them up, and go continue on the fight. And so our team was stationed there.
How long was that going on before we realized it? Do you know?
Oh gosh, let's see. Yeah.
Soldiers knew what was going on. Leadership didn't want to admit to it.
I got there. So I started in Rawa in August of 2005. The day before I went to Rawa, there was a 48-hour firefight that had just finished up. They were shooting at us from mosques, and all the weaponry had already been moved in. But we weren't allowed to shoot back at the mosque because it's a mosque.
Wasn't there a leader in that mosque, or is this maybe who knows how many firefights?
Yeah, a lot of times there are. And so there's a bunch of stories I have of like what we've done and what we were able to find, and then high value insurgents that we picked up and things like that. But from a actual combat perspective, my vehicle got blown up. There was one injury on the vehicle. The vehicle was destroyed. I mean, it didn't make it, but no deaths. The injury was like a little piece of shrapnel in the guy's calf. That was it. And it was my driver. But you talked about checking equipment earlier. That's exactly what you do. We're sitting there talking, and there's me and 6 guys in the back of this striker, and we get hit, and we're mid conversation talking about like parties in high school and all this other stuff, right? And you can't see anything. Everything goes. It's like black, but it's dirt, right? There's dirt and smoke, and you can't see, you can't breathe. And then I got hit in the back of the head because the radio basically came dislodged and hit my Kevlar. And so I'm immediately like, oh shit, I took shrapnel, right? That's my first thought. So you start doing the check, legs and oh no, I'm not bleeding. All right, I'm good. And as the medic, I start reaching out across, and I'm checking the guys that are next to me. I'm talking to them. I'm getting them to talk to me. And then I checked my driver, and he was the only one that was injured.
Wow.
And so I got my my combat medic badge from that event, and then basically we had a mass cal where we were taking fire, and it was all Iraqi army that was injured, basically triaging and pulling all those guys into an aid station. And so that was the extent. 16 months. Yeah, 16 months. Those are the 2 major situations I went through, and then everything else was just routine missions. And
what's the mindset as a medic working on the enemy?
It's tough. It's real tough.
As in trying to save the enemy's life?
It is, it's the great question, right?
Yeah.
They're literally trying to kill you.
Yep.
Your job as a medic really is to do no harm.
Yep.
And, the way we treat it as the United States is we are going to render aid. Yep. They're prisoners, but we still render full aid that our
are no longer a threat. We have to treat them.
So what's the mindset of a medic going through that situation? I mean,
is a regular soldier a non-medic? Are they charged with the same if they're in that position?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the concept for the infantry is basically self-aid, buddy aid. And so they learn the basic life-saving techniques, and that's it. Medics take it to a next level where we're learning, IVs and crikes and all sorts of other techniques in order to try and save.
They're like EMTs.
Basically. It's between like an EMT and a paramedic.
And
We're not fully paramedics. We don't have the same pharmacology that a paramedic would.
Okay.
But we have a lot of the same life-saving techniques. There's a lot of things that a medic could do that a paramedic is allowed to do as a civilian, but a regular EMT would not be allowed.
And depending on the unit, and at least in the Marine Corps, I mean, the teams that we went out with, we were all taught the same: how to start IVs, how to incubate, all that kind of stuff. So we can do it all.
Core temp.
A lot of those
is important.
Yeah. A lot of those techniques are trained by your medics that are attached.
Okay.
So the Marines, they have Navy corpsmen who are attached to their units. Their devil
God bless
dogs are their devil docs are sitting there and teaching the Marines the same things. And I did the same thing. I had one guy on my team that was an infantry guy, had some brains and actually could understand medicine to a certain level. I trained him up that way. If anything ever happened to me, I knew I had somebody in my unit that could give at least the level of care that I could.
So have you been in that position where you've had to take care of an enemy?
Yeah. So we had a couple of situations where we were taking care of, well, not particularly an insurgent. I haven't had to actually work on the enemy per se, but in a lot of ways, the Iraqi army, a lot of those guys kind of played both sides, right? And you never knew, are you training the good guy? Are you training the bad guy? Are you working with the good guy? Are you working with
the other thing
guy?
of this, when we're talking about the mental stress that you guys are under, you never know from 1 minute to the next.
One of my deployments was the MIT team, the military transition team, where we trained and lived with the Iraqi soldiers out in town, lived in the houses out there. And after I went to that, I told you briefly about the traumatic incidents we had in Ramadi, the 2nd Battalion 4th Marines. I was there a year and a half later, working and training those same people, some of the same people that were killing my comrades a year and a half ago. But now they're our allies. I mean, we still slept with, piss on our pillows, that kind of thing. But we lived in houses with the Iraqi soldiers, and we had like one American in each house, and the rest were Iraqi soldiers. So it was hard to get used to that because that's that political side. Now we're our allies, we're training them to be better. So
I'll throw this out there real quick just to kind of summarize. Treating the enemy, they don't get the morphine. Only the good guys get the morphine.
Nice. So
I keep complaining about that. The reason he ran on morphine because there was a bad firefight earlier, and they had to treat other soldiers. And it was a National Guard guy that actually put me back together before my medics could get on scene. And he runs a nonprofit up in Buffalo, New York now that actually is with the Buffalo Sabres Warriors.
Oh, cool.
So I
We
want to
actually
get up
had-
there for a turn.
we had one guy, we did one of our foot patrols when I was with my corpsman. Because when I was with the MIT team, we didn't have vehicles; it was all foot patrols. It'd be 2 Americans and about 12 Iraqi soldiers, and we had stumbled across a house with a guy in there that was completely burned, 100% burned up and down his body. We believe he was somebody who set off an IED and it didn't quite go his way. But our corpsman gave him a shot of morphine because he knew he was going to be dying.
Yeah.
Any minute he was going to be dying, so we put him at ease and then kept going.
So, did you ever have suspicions of individuals that ended up being accurate, or maybe suspicions that you were completely wrong on? I mean, I can't imagine that it's just not being cut and dry. Good guys, bad guys. No, it's good guy 1 minute, bad guy the next.
But you have to have an appreciation for it too, because even the most patriotic American, if the bad guy came in their house and held their family hostage and said, "If you don't let us use your home, we're going to kill your family," and that was a common theme out there. That's what they would do. They would hijack the homes. The bad guys would move into that home, and they would tell the young man, 18, 19 years old, "Hey, you're going to go lay this IED, or we're going to kill your mom."
And they'd wipe out generations.
Yeah.
Not just one. They would take out generations of family.
Yep.
They didn't care.
No, just to get either their poppies planted or their IED planted.
So I was, this is kind of not from the Iraq and stuff, but a few years back, 2003 timeframe, I was working with the Vietnam Center in Lubbock, Texas, at Texas Tech there. And I was in the room. I was a sergeant. I was escorting Admiral Zumwalt, the former Admiral Zumwalt. And I was in the room when the #1 commander for North Korea, or North Vietnamese, and the second in charge of South Vietnamese met for the first time.
Wow.
And it was an intense meeting, and it was a respect. They're enemy 100%, but they shook hands, gave each other a hug, and it was the very first time since Vietnam that they were actually met each other. And you have to have that respect for your enemy, no matter how smart you think they are, or how bad they are, or whatever. You have to have that respect for them, because they're just like you. I mean, they think they're defending their country. So it's a different dynamic that you have to appreciate for. I think.
If I can take a moment here with Tim, that's not right, is it?
Nope.
I know. I was afraid of that.
Nope.
I have offended Tim Kellner because my cheat sheet says
I know where you live.
Marines. I'm afraid.
I wrote
of that.
down your plates.
So, but Hilary came up with these like possible questions. Was there anything on here that stood out that you wanted to address with us here today? Because I saw you looking it over, and I wondered if. And by the way, what I wrote on here, I wrote Marine sniper. It's Army.
Army sniper.
Yeah, my bad.
He needs the notes just so we know what he's talking about.
Yes, I do.
Here, I'm gonna let me find a Sharpie real quick.
I was
As
looking.
long as I got a crayon.
I was looking in the windows out there earlier.
Yeah,
And I said there were
yeah.
snacks.
There
I
we
was
go.
completely lost.
There we go. We're gonna fix this right now.
There were some
Okay.
questions about what people should do when they first get out and transitioning to the civilian world.
Yeah.
Biggest thing, don't isolate yourself.
Find
That is
community.
the easiest thing to do.
That seems to be the
I did it. I'll be honest, I don't like most civilians. I really, even now, don't like most civilians.
Should I leave?
If you're 15
Slowly.
minutes early, you're still late. So that civilian that shows up 5 minutes late drives me absolutely
20
nuts.
minutes late.
You and I, we're really more similar than you realize.
No,
man.
I got that, but a lot of people just have that mentality like, oh, I'm just 5 minutes late. What do you mean just 5 minutes late?
Yeah, right.
You're 20 minutes late.
Yeah. Like,
Did you hear that, Laura?
that's
Good.
fine.
Feeling personally attacked.
I'm okay with that.
So let's talk about transition because we've all done it.
I've got a buddy that just retired 2 months ago, and he's been starting to isolate himself. He lives up in the Denton area, and he's the one I just
live
got
up
the.
in the Denton area. You need me to go knock on his door?
I got him to come to the Warriors.
Let's go.
He actually played that game. He's the one that got
The hockey.
was sticking up for
What do you guys
our
do?
buddy.
Oh, okay. So he was playing the yearly game. Okay.
Yeah.
He's
He's the one that subbed and kind of got sent home early for sticking up for somebody.
Yeah.
But he's been slowly withdrawing, and I've been making him not withdraw. Like I've been forcing him to go to things. Yesterday, I just had a medical procedure done. It's just a simple thing, but I'm like, hey man, can you drive me? Just to get him to go do something.
Smart.
Like now, I needed somebody to drive me, but there's like 20 other people I could have called that would probably been easier. He has to drive down like an hour and a half to where I live, pick me up, drive another hour and a half to the VA in Dallas, and then hang out for 3 hours while I get something done just to drive me back. But he's not sitting in where he lives
He's
by
occupied a
himself,
day of his
Yeah.
mind there. Yeah.
just to get him out and doing something. And he grew up playing hockey in Minnesota, so he loves hockey. So getting him out and playing is great, but he just slowly keeps isolating himself back into, and I just keep dragging him back out. So the biggest thing is getting somebody who's just getting out, from getting them not to isolate themselves. And you guys brought up One Tribe Foundation, which they have different components of it. The 22 kill aspect is just the awareness side of, don't take your own life. That's why we got the rings. And then you got the
on the trigger finger.
Yep, on the trigger finger. So that's your, it's your vow to stay in the fight and not take yourself and spread that pain to someone else. But then you have like the One Tribe outdoors, and I actually am a big part of that. I just don't talk about it as much as I should because I get overwhelmed with all the other BS that I do. And I take people out. We go shooting, we go horseback riding, we go hiking, we go mudding, all these different things you do. It's not just outdoors, it's sports too. Hockey's a part of it.
Yep.
And we go do these things because not everybody, translates and relates and communicates the same way. So once you get out there and you start doing things, barriers start to come down and you start talking. We used to like to use, not we as in like One Tribe, but veterans, we used to like to use alcohol and go, let's go to the bar and have some drinks. And that is probably one of the worst things we could possibly do. The barriers come down, but then the depression kicks in because it's a depressant. And
That was
somebody
my go-to. I was 19 years old from the Gulf War. And I dwelled on, I was 19, had to fill out a will. And there's two things with that is one, you never really think about death as a 19-year-old kid. And then two, I had nothing to my name to leave anybody. So it was like, and at 19, you shouldn't have anything ready to leave someone. But it's two things that stuck to me was having to fill out that will for the first time. That kind of changed my mindset, if you will.
Even being enlisted, you still consider yourself invincible. Huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially at 19.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So when I got out of that, alcohol was my go-to. I mean, my paycheck was only $300 to $400 a week, but it was alcohol. It was spent. That's what it was spent.
And that's what One Tribe tries to get you away from.
Yeah.
Because
One Tribe uses I can't remember Justin's
Adrenaline
word for it,
therapy
but
or
yeah, it's
similar.
Sometimes-
this concept of basically
What's
therapy
camaraderie?
without going to therapy.
Yeah.
And so it's
Non-traditional.
It's not counseling. That's the word I was looking for. Non-traditional therapy. And so they have like wind therapy where it's guys on motorcycles. They have outdoor therapy where they're doing, outdoor events and things like that. We're not a part of that organization, but it's the same concept with the Dallas Warriors and with hockey. It's ice therapy, right? That any time that I can get away from my day-to-day life, get away from what I'm doing, get on the ice and get to either play a game or practice or spend time with the locker room and like-minded people, it's an opportunity for me to forget all the problems, have a good time, get a little bit of an adrenaline rush, get that camaraderie back, and then, at the same time, turn around and help somebody.
And it doesn't
who may
matter
be
what you're
struggling
talking
with
about.
something.
Just talking,
Yeah.
just about. I mean, you talk about what you had for dinner, but when you're
Yep.
talking to someone else about it, that stress is being relieved. You know it, especially when you're dealing with someone and has been through it before.
The second part to that is once we get through the non-traditional side, like maybe you opened up to me finally. We were out there shooting and you started talking to me. And I know the sniper stuff is what we talk about. I do have some intelligence in my background for stuff that I've done, especially when I was recovering. I started doing intelligence work. I'll figure out some things like, okay, he's having financial troubles. He's having personal issues, spousal issues, like whatever it is, I'll pick up on it. They do have a counseling side to it, an actual licensed counseling center with people where you can go talk. So I'll get you in the pipeline, like, boom, you go talk to these people, or if it's financial, we got this organization over here that handles finance. Like,
And
I
again,
get you in
that's-
the pipeline of what you need help with.
And that's the biggest battle. Getting the information out there. It's been getting out there. It's just getting that service member to say, I need that help. And that's where it's hard. It's getting a lot better. I mean, towards the end of my career, the stigma was starting to fade away because you have one, it means you're weak, if you need help. And two, you're afraid if you do tell them that you have some issues, then you might lose your career, your job.
Yep.
The military, at least the Marine Corps, has changed that considerably because of the senior staff and COs at the time had learned that, hey, we need to treat this differently. So,
And we all our different organizations, we all have a role in a different way. And I say that, obviously One Tribe, I knew nothing about One Tribe until we lost Stephen Springer a couple of months ago. And just a tragic occurrence. But Keith is the president of our organization, the Warriors. Immediately, we had a practice, or it was the sled hockey event. We did an event with the Sled Stars, but Keith had the One Tribe guys come up, and we had a meeting for those of us for the club to get all the documentation. There's different ways to handle things, and there's no one right way. And each of us and each of the organizations, how I view them, we all do something a little bit different, but we have to continue to correlate and coordinate to ensure that we can give our members we'll call it like a total package when reaching out and if somebody needs something, because our therapy is hockey and the camaraderie and bringing the disabled veterans together, but there's things that we just can't do. And Mighty Oak, One Tribe, it's having the additional resources that we can give them and vice versa, that we can say, hey, we've got a guy who needs, that we can help them get the resources and vice versa. And I think that's
exactly what happened with Spring. Is as a leadership organization, we realized we don't have the resources personally within our organization to supply to our members in a way that could help them if they're struggling, right? And so I immediately called Justin and I was like, look, man, we got this situation. This is what happened. Here's everything that I know. I'm pulling the entire organization together over these 2 days. Can you guys come out and just share your resources? And that was it. And they came out and they kind of told their story and they told what it was about. And at the same time, gave everybody that was there access. We recorded that and basically sent that out to the team as well, saying, hey, anybody who wasn't able to be here, we all know this is what's going on. Here are the resources that are available to you. The other thing that came from that is I had direct connection as the president of the organization to Spring's family. And so I went to his wife and his mom and said, look, I know that, you guys have kids. I know that there are other circumstances here that maybe you guys would or wouldn't qualify for help. But One Tribe is available to you as well. As a Gold Star family, you guys have the opportunity to get resources for your kids, counseling for the kids, help them go through this situation, because this is extremely traumatic just for them, but it's also available to his mom and to his wife and everybody else. And so, One Tribe is from a resource perspective has been a huge help to us. We kind of help get people there because it's kind of disguised, right? Like we're having fun, we're getting people on the ice, we're all that, but then you start to uncover things, and it's like, okay, great. How do we plug you in?
Yeah, the ice hockey, for the most part, is our rehab or our therapy.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a set up to be a resource for someone who's needing help. It ends up being that, but that's not what the Dallas Warriors are. They're starting to get better, and we're starting to turn it into that. But it was just a place that we could get our treatment at.
I want you guys to take this occasion to inform people where they can go to get information on the Dallas Warriors. And obviously, this live stream goes out everywhere. I would hope that there are similar. Oh, he's a troublemaker. I would hope that there are similar outfits in other cities, whether it's hockey, maybe there's other sports. Is there? And that's not a fair question. But is there a central location where you could go and?
The best place to find information about the Dallas Warriors is dallaswarriorshockey.com.
Okay.
We also have Facebook that a lot of our information gets put out on Facebook or Instagram. But yeah, there's a whole community of disabled veteran hockey organizations.
Okay.
It's all underneath USA Hockey. We have our own
And you don't
Warrior
have to
division.
play hockey.
You don't have to play
at
hockey,
all.
no.
And that's what I was looking
but there's
for.
there's
a national
40
thing,
there's 45-ish, maybe more than 45 different teams throughout the U.S. We all come together for
St.
national
Louis,
tournaments.
Tampa Bay,
Yeah.
Chicago,
Philadelphia,
Buffalo.
Chicago. Yeah.
And just to emphasize
Pittsburgh.
the point,
Yep.
you don't have to
Not at all.
have a hockey
Just
background.
show up. I've got gear in a locker. We'll put it on you. We'll get you set up. Just show up and
I
play.
didn't start playing hockey till last year. I'm 46 years old.
He came
Same
from 22 Killer from One Tribe. I mean,
Yeah.
that was his connection to the Warriors. He found us at an event that One Tribe happened to be at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's where that correlation and us really
like it.
working together and meshing together.
Came in through the back door.
What
As
do
you
you
always
guys? It's just to remind everyone what we're doing here
get
today. It's we'll explain it to you a little bit later.
I'll show you the
Jamie.
locker room.
OneTribeFoundation.org, the number one tribefoundation.org, if you'd like to see all the stuff that they do, whether you're a veteran that just wants to see what they offer, or whether you're someone watching this that want to donate and support, and before you give your money, you want to see what they're all about. Same with MightyOaksFoundations.org, MightyOaksFoundations.org, and then the donations can go to GiveSendGo.com/veteransinneed. 100%. I mean, every single penny that we get is going to these two groups, and you can donate.
Expensive.
Yeah, and you can donate
For those
through
that don't know.
Wednesday
So,
at noon.
Tell us about your oak.
Mighty Oak.
Yeah, let's hear about your Mighty Oak.
I don't follow.
Mighty Oak Foundation.
So that's a new organization to us.
Yeah. Okay.
We've had a lot of interaction with
Well, earlier.
One Tribe is our group.
Mhm.
And, obviously that was my connection to One Tribe was through the Warriors and seeing everything that they do. But for our network and the people that are going to see this, maybe we need to put a little bit more out there, especially now we're.
We just described One Tribe, so I want to hear about yours.
Well, okay. I'm not the
Mighty
spokesman for
Yeah,
Mighty
okay.
Oaks. We have Hunter Robichaux in here the first hour.
Do you hand out trees?
Okay, here we go. So
Do you have wood?
Not currently. Hunter was in here earlier. It was an hour number one, and he went through that. And it's a faith-based organization that really helps families. And it almost sounded like, and one of the things I didn't follow up with Hunter on is, or maybe I did actually. He was talking about how they bring guys in for a week and go through how to
Like a
how to
retreat?
live. Yeah, I kind of like that. But then they give them the tools when they go home
Okay.
to continue down that path, and it's just fascinating because his dad, Chad, he because I used to book guests for Glenn Beck on his radio show. And that's how I got to know Chad. Oh, gosh, it was almost 10 years ago, I think, when he started Mighty Oaks. And just a great guy. And I believe in everything.
So they get to go in, they get assessed, and then whatever they're good at, they help them continue that. Whatever they need help with, they put them in a pipeline to get help with.
It sounds like that. And it sounds like how you guys described One Tribe. It sounds like there's so many different areas that and I just that's what's so cool that I love hearing about these groups.
One Tribe's more of a networking though. Like we have everything in there,
Uh-huh.
but when we don't have, we reach out. So there's equestrian stuff. We don't have horses, but we'll reach out to somebody who
Right.
does.
And that's what's so cool is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it just from the outside looking in, it sounds like these groups have been so successful that they can branch out through donations like what
Mhm.
we're asking for today. It doesn't sound like it's just, just boom, cookie cutter. No. It really serves a whole bunch of needs through a whole bunch of
Each
unique
service
areas.
member has a friend that will help them and go through stuff, be a talking board, if you will. But without the right resource and without the right training, you don't know what the right answers are to them. And that's where you have to have someone who's been around for a while. You have to have resources who are trained in that stuff to be more beneficial for them. I never even knew about the wind therapy till about a year ago.
Uh-huh.
I haven't tried it. My hair's not going anywhere. But there is some. I have some clients that are veteran organizations, if you will, and they, using horses and stuff, and just there you go.
What are these
Just-
horses for?
Some of them are just they don't even ride the horses. It's simply taking care of that horse and bonding with that horse because they can't bond with people very well. So there's so much stuff out there that
You believe this guy? He's showing off.
Are they unicorns?
Wow. And that one of the things that Hunter mentioned earlier with Mighty Oaks that I really appreciated, that within 24 hours of that form being filled out by a veteran in need that's reaching out, they're going to get a response. And I think that's really important. And I want to, again, give the National Suicide Prevention Hotline phone number. If you're watching this or you know somebody that let me give this number out because then I have a question about this for you guys. It's 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255, or you can send a text message to 838-255, 838-255. If you even have an inkling of a thought of harming yourself, please reach out to these groups. And that's what I wanted to mention there. With the suicide prevention hotline and just that feeling of despair, is there, and I don't want to get personal with you guys. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I want to ask each of you.
You were warned.
I was warned.
You were
I know.
warned.
We're not going to talk about your sniper days.
Not even that. Just any question you ask,
Yeah.
you'll get an honest
Okay,
answer.
no.
So
No, I want to talk about people that you know, that you served with. Okay. Would you say that a veteran is more likely to reach out to something like
anonymous.
Like this right here? This is like an immediate phone number that they can reach out, or they're going to reach out to a buddy. In other words, do you think they're more comfortable talking?
They want to reach out to someone who's been in their situation, which is sad.
So this may not. So that's what I want to ask.
That's 50-50.
Yeah, it is. I'm saying they would like that. I think there's if they had two phone numbers in front of them and they knew this was a veteran organization and this was just a hotline to get help, I think they'd pick the veteran first. It doesn't mean they won't pick this one because actually there's.
But would they come to you guys as someone that they already know, or would they call a veterans group first? In other words, are you the first line of defense in saving your buddy?
I would like to think they'd reach out.
So I'll give a real world example.
Okay.
Prior to spring, we had somebody within our organization, 5:30 in the morning, shoots out a message in our players page. It's like, guys, I'm not okay. I need help right now. We had 6 or 7 people that happened to be up and moving around at that time. All of them jumped in, dropped their phone numbers. And then from there, immediately people within the organization are already messaging them on Facebook Messenger. They have his number, they're texting him. But it went after he sent that message, he basically passed out and went to sleep. We went 5 hours with no feedback, nothing from him. So as an organization, we're immediately starting to like ring the bells, right? Like, what's going on? You know, we got this situation. This is what's going on. We get a hold of the guy, and he's like, "Sorry, guys, I passed out, but I know that everybody's worried about me. I'm good, etc." But we still had somebody who drove 2.5 hours to get out to his house, hung out with him for a couple hours. We got him connected into One Tribe. We ended up, and I personally called Justin. I'm like, dude, I got a guy. I need help now. Like, I don't need help tomorrow. I don't need him on a list. I need him now. And they accommodated and go through. But that first step was him realizing the thoughts that I'm having right now aren't productive towards my future. And I've got a resource, and I've got friends that I can reach out to who have been there and know what I'm going through. But also, I know that somebody is going to be there to answer the phone.
And it's worth mentioning that, and as a retired police officer, it's something I'm aware of. It is a common thing for us to get a call from someone out of state or from a different, a few hours away to do what's called a welfare check.
Yeah.
And we did it all the time. And it was nice when some of us were veterans, we tried to do it because you got a lot more response from that veteran, anybody in the public that was needing assistance. But some people don't know that police officers will go out there and do a welfare check, and they have the same thing. They'll get a hold of dispatch, say, "Hey, we need a resource for this guy now. Need a hold of the VA or get a hold of this resource, whatever," and we link them up. So it is a common thing. If you don't know about it, contact your local police department if you need to get someone to go check on somebody physically.
You have to understand you can't save everybody.
Yeah.
Some people, there's been people through One Tribe that we've helped repeatedly, and they still took their own life. Like, there's nothing we could have done. We got them in the care they needed. They had drug problems. They had alcohol problems. They had so many problems. We helped them for years. We put them in program after program after program, and still they used not a firearm, but they used an alternate means to take their own life. Like, there was nothing you could do about it. It was reckless behavior they used. Just there's
And
you can't save everybody.
Herein lies the $1 million question. That's it right there. How do we reduce that? Because there are guys out there, girls out there who they see no light at the end of the tunnel. And you may not know, on an intelligence side, Frank Dema made a great point. You post X, Y, and Z all the time on your social media, and you post something that's just a little bit off, and nobody else noticed it and made a thought of it, and that was your cry for help, and it went unnoticed because it was just a little bit, and but you continue down that reckless road or that reckless thought process, and how do we try to reduce that? And it is a sad reality that we can't help everyone.
Yeah.
And and I think
the 22, the name there was 22 a day, but it's gone up, I think, like 40%.
Really?
It fluctuates.
It's at about 55 a day right now. It came out I think I sent that to you, Keith, about 6 weeks ago, where the government severely undercounted it by almost 3 times, and it equaled out to like 55 or 58 a day.
We've lost more from suicide than combat.
Okay, so as veterans, let me ask you. Maybe you don't know the answer to this, and maybe it's individualized with every person that serves. Is it as simple? Can you answer? What is it that pushes? Is every case different?
Yeah, everyone has a breaking point.
Yeah.
I use the term breaking loosely. I mean, it's.
But is there some systemic thing that the government maybe is? Because I feel that
it goes back long before modern wars.
Yeah.
I mean, you have stories from World War I, from all the way back to all the way back to Civil War, and they've had different names for it. The concept is basically PTSD, but there's a lot more to it than just standard. I mean, post-traumatic stress disorder can be caused by anything. You could have a car crash and that creates post-traumatic stress disorder. And now you're afraid to ever sit in a car again. And now you have these PTSD flare-ups based on the environment that you're in. It's not a unique military diagnosis, but what you're talking about is actually something that's been around and there hasn't come an answer to, is it different per person? Is it the same? Are there similarities? There's a lot of different things that play into it. But the concept is we're not designed to kill each other.
And the other dynamic is you add the variable of military members, men and women alike, are so competitive in nature and think that they're so. I mean, you got to be confident. I may not be able to win every fight, but when I'm going to walk into that fight thinking I'm going to win it.
Yeah.
And if you're that mentality, you're so strong. You can just, as soon as you have a weakness, it's that much more detrimental in thought that you're weaker than this person over here or that person over there, and that just drives in on you because you're supposed to be a strong man. Generations, age is different. I just had another thought.
The military does a great job of creating soldiers. They don't do a great job of adapting soldiers back to civilians.
But there are improvements. They are working on it.
Yes.
They
Oh,
really
it's
are.
absolutely a
There's
known problem. And there are a lot of resources outside of the nonprofit organizations, like within the military and within the leadership in the military that are trying to solve that. But at the end of the day, when you're 18, 19, 20 years old and you're being trained to take a life, it's really hard to take that person and train them back to compassion and civilization.
I think it's a little bit more than that. You're not just taking a life, though. It's complete, I don't want to say disregard for. Your job is a little different. I understand this. If I got shot at, I didn't care. I'm taking fire. I'm going to take cover so I don't get hit, but I'm not taking cover to protect myself because I'm worried about getting hit. I have this false sense of invincibility. It's just in me. So my disregard for my own life is also a disregard for your life. Like, I care about my soldiers not getting hit because we have to accomplish the mission. I'm not worried about you because, oh my God, oh, don't die, buddy. Like they show in the movies. It's get your ass up. We need to go take this threat out.
We learned that one of the tactics.
It's a little different.
One of our tactics.
It's a numbing almost.
We would, if we sat for anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes was the time frame in one position, then the enemy would have time to group up because they didn't work. They just weren't, force marching looking for enemy. They were doing jobs. They're in someone's house and they realized we're there for 15, 20 minutes. They're going to set up, get a couple guns out there and try to snipe at us. So we learned that after about 20, 25 minutes in the same place, we could draw some attention. I don't know how many times we took our helmets off on the tops of the roof and just sat there and waited to draw the enemy out because it was adrenaline. And I don't know how many times I've been chased across the rooftop of the house.
Wow.
I mean, and it was just.
And think about how we're built, right? Every single one of us, and we're a little bit more old school. We went in before it necessarily softened a little bit, and some
Speak for yourself.
things came in. I mean, Tim and Jamie got me beat. I didn't come in until 2001. But the concept of basic training back in those days was to absolutely rip you down to a shell and rebuild you in the form that they wanted. However, when we got out in the Air Force, it was called the Transition Assistance Program, TAPS. When you went through TAPS, they taught you how to write a resume and patted you on the back, handed you your discharge paperwork, and you were out the door. There was no transition. There was no, I think they call it skill soft now or skill set, where now they're allowing people to get out technically 6 months before.
If you do a job, so if you get a what do you call it? Apprenticeship almost. I forgot what it's called.
Exactly. But now they're trying to ease you into the transition.
And you start transition 2 years out now. It used to be 6 months.
Okay.
6 months before you retired. And then you're like, start going to these appointments and they teach you how to write the resume because it's like 1 day every week that you go there.
Before
and you start
we leave the combat zone, we pretty much had to decompress for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
We went to, because we didn't live on a base. We go back to a base and we had no responsibilities other than getting up and eat and talk to each other. And they had some counselors come in and talk to us. And that was prior to even leaving country.
Wow.
So that was a huge impact. That's something we didn't do in the Gulf War. We didn't do it the first time I deployed to Iraq.
I didn't get that.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well, maybe it's because of the mid teams. I mean, because we were vetted with
Which
the
deployment was that?
2006. There was only 12 of us on the team. We, like
Yeah.
someone who living out in the houses. So we weren't allowed to go home until we had that 2 weeks of decompression.
So again, one last question, same one for each of you before we wrap this up here. And I'm going to start with you, Jamie. If there is, you're all going to get this. So if there's one message that you could give to civilians like me, what is the best way we can support our veterans? Because today's Veterans Day, but I'm talking about the other 364. Just generally speaking, what can we do to support you guys who have sacrificed so much?
Well, the cliche is, get the word out there. One of the things just this morning, I'm the VP for the Dallas Veterans, DFW's Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and they were talking about, there's restaurants out there getting free meals and stuff like that. I never even knew that.
Wow.
I mean, I never even considered,
So
hey,
getting that message out, yeah.
And that's kind of helps some veterans, but to me, these restaurants, we appreciate that. That's awesome. But maybe instead of doing that, donate. Even if it's only, one veteran meal is $50 or $60 for, a couple, if you will. Instead of spending $50, $60, now take them with the veterans, but put it into a resource that can help them long term, not just for that next meal.
I see.
So maybe consider that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Tim?
I'm probably the worst person to ask.
Yeah.
Mine's simple. I would just like the general public to be more honest. That's all. Like my whole thing about being late or not cutting me off in traffic. People make mistakes. Don't give me the double bird. Wave and say you're sorry. We're cool. Like, just be more honest. Don't lie to me about what time you're going to be here. Don't, do this, that, and the other. Just be a better person. If it's for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, just be honest with the general public. It helps us communicate better with the civilians. It helps us integrate better with them, work with you. If I have a job where I have to work with civilians, they're like, hey, I'm going to be there. Like, cool. I know you're going to be there. I can trust you. It's just, I just want society to be a little bit better.
Real quick to add to that as a resource, you don't have to be a veteran to recognize that a veteran needs assistance. Everyone knows a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
If you see someone presenting those signs or not communicate with you much anymore, get a hold of another veteran to reach out to them. You can be a resource as well. So, sorry.
Yeah.
My addition would be to continue to support the organizations like One Tribe and Mighty Oak and Dallas Warriors. But I would say on the 501c3 side or on the veteran nonprofit side, look into the organizations that you're supporting and make sure that they're doing real work with veterans. There's a lot of organizations out there that basically they're accumulating a bunch of money and then they may or may not be dispersing all of that money.
And I'm so glad you said that, because these two groups were specifically intentionally picked. They weren't randomly drawn out of a hat. These are organizations that I know are run by good people that do good things for our veterans.
Absolutely.
So, but I absolutely, but there are some groups out there that have the name that actually is out there on top of mind.
Yep.
That aren't necessarily do your homework.
They do 10% and they talk about the rest.
Yep.
And
so that would be my, like, if I was to talk to just any civilian and they're like, hey, how can I help more? Right. Find an organization that you believe in, that you can connect with, a real person, and talk with them and understand what it is that organization does with the money that you're giving, and just continue to support those organizations because they're making a big difference in the day-to-day lives of veterans because they know that the veterans, they're connected to them. In our situation, we have 200 members within our organization. We don't necessarily have, I may not personally as the president be able to reach out to every single person, but within the organization, it's all a web and we're all connected to each other.
Understood. Well said. Before you go, can we see the Dallas Warriors play? Like, can the public come and watch you guys?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a recreational team that plays Sunday nights out of Farmers Branch.
Okay.
It kind of varies. We don't play this Sunday. Next Sunday we play at 5:15.
You can
those are
find it
wel-
online.
Those are welcome.
Jump on that one because a lot of times they're at 9:30, 10:30 at night. So
Yeah, 5:15 is a
Come on
great
over.
time.
Okay. What's the website for Dallas Warriors?
DallasWarriorsHockey.com.
Okay. Dallas
The
Warriors.
schedule's online. You can look at
Cool.
Farmers Branch, Texas. The was it Children's
Health Star Center.
Health Star Center? They'll have the schedule up. You can look it up. Come root for us.
Will you sign
It's
a
free.
hockey puck for me if I show up?
Sure, but it's gonna be ugly.
I think if it's worth it, I mean, I'd like to throw the shout out to Dallas Warriors, the hockey team that, I mean, they sponsor a lot of stuff and they help a lot of, especially youth.
Yeah.
They're great with it. So obviously, and they're the Stars. I mean, I'm talking about the Stars. Sorry, Dallas Stars.
Yeah.
Those
Dallas
are-
Stars.
Do we know
Yeah.
them?
That's what I meant. I mean,
Yeah,
they
the Dallas
do a
Stars
lot of
rookie
help.
program is great for kids,
Okay.
and they've really grown hockey in Dallas. There's
Okay.
22 sheets of ice throughout the Metroplex.
Wow.
A lot of people don't realize that.
Wow.
You can almost throw a stone and hit a hockey rink now,
That's
and it's
really
pretty
cool.
awesome.
That's a lot different than when I was a kid, man.
Yeah, it really is great for the hockey community. But yeah, we do that, and then occasionally we'll do charity games.
Okay.
So if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, we'll do local charity games
Okay.
where we'll play each other. We'll play like the Fort Worth Patriots, or we've played DPD and
We'll go out and
DFD.
The
Uh,
Sled
Sled-
Stars.
Yep,
Sled Stars
Dallas
is
Sled
So they
Stars.
can get ice time and let those guys beat the dog
So-
out of us.
Those are great ways to just find us, and
Okay.
if you plug into our Facebook, we announce those events as they come out. Come out and watch us play.
Dallas.
We're not the Dallas Stars.
No.
We don't skate like
You don't
that.
skate like that?
It's
Okay.
not quite that fast, but it's still fun to watch.
DallasWarriorsHockey.com.
Yeah.
All right. What's your message to civilians?
You know, mine kind of tallies off of what Keith said. And once you find that organization, champion it. That's the thing. You know,
It's good.
yeah, the donations are good. We all need money to operate and we all need money to run. But guess what else we need? We need people that champion our cause
Yeah.
and the causes of the organizations, but also to come out and help with the different events or things like that. Really be a champion for the organization that you select. You know, if you believe in it, put the word out there and go for it. And I'm not saying you got to be a part of every event or everything, but post it on social media. You know,
Right.
tell your friends, tell your people that you know.
Get the word out.
donors.
Yeah.
Get the word out, and really, you know, if you believe in it, go after it because we need the help. And all the organizations, we all do something different, but we all equally need the help and need the backing of donors, volunteers. You know, and sometimes it's just somebody to talk to.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, business leaders to bounce ideas off of.
Sure.
You know,
Take it for its worth. You help an organization like this, you are literally saving someone's life. You literally are saving a life.
Wow. Well, gentlemen, I mean, this has been enlightening, and I'm just grateful for all the time that you gave.
You're a terrible liar.
I don't think so. No.
You said you're paying us.
No. Laura's writing the checks out there.
He's not a liar. He's just disingenuous.
What in the world is happening?
The Roast
Okay.
Keith show.
Until Wednesday at noon Eastern, we're going to leave the donation link up if you would like to do your homework between now and then and go and look at mightyoakfoundations.org or one tribe, the
Foundation.
number one,
Yep.
onetribefoundation.org, and see where your potential donation will be going and what specifically it will be doing. I mean, both of these websites break down all of the things that. Oh no, Tim's got a question.
The mute button's on. I'm just kidding.
Okay. And so please share that, as you just said. Share that link between now and Wednesday. And then on Thursday is when we're going to give the money to the two organizations that you have provided so generously already. Thank you so much. I haven't even looked in a while. It's thousands of dollars. I mean, y'all are so great. Thank you so much for giving of yourselves and being a part of this. And gentlemen, thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Thanks
I
for the
appreciate
invitation.
the time of everyone here except for Tim.
I just-
How's that for being genuine?
I just came for the snacks.
Thank you. It's givesendgo.com /veterans in need. Thank you guys.
The sniper.